Good morning, creators, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you guys might be in your time zones. I wanted to jump on today and talk to you guys about some changes that came to the YouTube terms of service that people have been going plumb crazy over. And I understand why, because it's sort of the kind of changes we haven't seen in a while since like the last adpocalypse mess that happened. How's everybody doing out in the chat today? Good to see you, Doug. Good to see you, James. Good to see you, Marlon. Mr. Paul Peck in the house, Mr. Paul Peck. There is an email that if you're like me and you like really pay attention to the emails you get from YouTube and try to always keep up with what's going on, there was an email that came through the other day. Hey, let me see if I can share it on my screen with you. That was titled "Changes to YouTube's Terms of Service." And when I see these, I always pucker. I'm like, oh, good Lord. Oh man, what happened? What are we doing? What's about to happen? And the thing that it said, let me get a full screen for you. Let me know if I sound good out there today, guys, if I can hear me okay. Let me pull this up so you can see it. The actual email said, the summary of changes they're updating the terms of service. And some of the changes were things that were less obvious, tricky, things that you didn't expect to see coming, such as facial recognition restrictions. And they were just saying the terms of service already state that you can't collect any information that might identify a person without their permission. While this has always included facial recognition software, recognition information, the new terms make that explicitly clear. And I think that, some of this is subject to interpretation. I think that basically means you can't use any kind of software where you start scraping things like thumbnails to try to gather data using what you might see from, on YouTube and gather information about any person that might be on the platform. So that sort of affects creators. Not at all, unless you're someone who's in here trying to use YouTube to collect data and you're using a face scraping software, data collection software. The next point that they mentioned, let me get this over here, was this is the big one. This is the big one. Make sure you can see this. This middle one, YouTube's right to monetize. This was the one that I went, what? Wait a second, hang on. And what they said is YouTube has the right to monetize all content on the platform, and ads may appear on videos from channels not in the YouTube partner program. All right, let's take a minute to digest that. That's a scary proposition because you have to say, well, what does that mean? That's the summary, right? And it can be scary because you say, wait a minute, if I'm not in the YouTube partner program, meaning I don't make any money, then if they're running ads on my content, they make money, but I don't make money. And it's one of those things that triggered a lot of creators to think like, holy crap, what does that mean? Like, why wouldn't I get a piece of that? If they're allowed to run ads, shouldn't I get some of that? And they were very vague about the way they did it. It also says YouTube has the right to monetize all content on the platform, and ads may appear on videos from channels not in the program. So then you start saying, okay, it has the right to monetize all content. We know that the folks like us that have been in the YouTube partner program, that we've reached monetization, we have the ability to turn ads off completely. We can decide we don't want ads on our channel. So the question starts becoming, we've heard people say, well, wait a minute, what if I don't want ads? What if I choose, I've reached the monetization threshold. Can I turn those ads off still? Do I still have the right to do that? Which is really, one of those things that, because YouTube is sometimes vague about the language that they use, that it brings up a lot of questions. They leave things very open-ended. So that was the second point that was mentioned in the summary. Let me get to the third, which is right down here, which says that royalty payments and tax withholding for creators entitled to revenue payments, such payments will be treated as royalties from a U.S. tax perspective, and Google will withhold taxes where required by law. Okay, that's the third thing. Now, we're going to get into these a little bit deeper, but I want to make sure you understand what they're saying. For anybody who's in the YouTube Partner Program now, you're probably used to getting a direct deposit into your bank account. You tie it up through AdSense, and then when it gets time to get paid, which is usually in the U.S., somewhere around 21st, 22nd of the month, you'll see that payment end up in your account. But what they've done now is they've always like given us the money, and at the end of the year, you get what they call in the U.S. I should clarify by saying this is in the U.S. They send you what they call a 1099. In other countries, it may be handled differently. I can only tell you from what I know from my perspective. So they would send you a 1099, which is basically a document that says you're basically like a subcontractor that says, we paid you this much money. You're responsible for all the taxes and everything that comes with it. And this is our declaration to the American government saying, we made a bunch of money, but we gave a bunch of the money out to all these different creators, and they're responsible for the taxes on the money that we handed out because we're going to deduct it from our earnings because we gave it away. That's always made a ton of sense to me. I come from a background where I ran my own business for over 3 decades, so I had no problem with that. But this new change is going to treat it more like royalties, and it's almost more like the way like a entertainer would get paid, or a musician, or maybe someone who had a book deal. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to change some of the structures. So we're gonna go through this a little bit and see if we can make sense of it. And I think that some of this is less impactful for most people than others, and it's more impactful to some people because it can feel like a lot of changes. And feel free to ask questions in the chat here. I'm kind of keeping this one loose today. I want to see what your impression is on this and what you feel about some of these changes. And if you are a channel that isn't monetized, you feel like this might impact you, this might change the way you make content, or is this maybe just a push to get out there and try to get monetized faster where you gain control of it? So again, looking at those first 3, I think we can take the first one right off the box. The big change is the facial recognition. I don't think anyone's worried about that. But let's talk about this for a moment. Let's talk about that YouTube's right to monetize. They're going to start monetizing, or they have the right to monetize any content on the platform. So if you are a channel that has under 1,000 subscribers or under 4,000 watch hours in the last 365 days, that means that you could suddenly start seeing ads show up on your content. You go like, wait a minute, I saw my content and an ad showed up, but I'm not monetized. I thought they only play ads if your channel is, if you're in the YouTube Partner Program. We call it the YPP, YouTube Partner Program. So there's a thing you have to think about. I think I'm reading right here from DF Zen. I think it's dumb how we will get ads but don't get paid. You know, you're not the only one who feels that way. That's been one perspective, my friend. I think a lot of people have felt like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem fair that you would take money, put ads on my content, and then you would not give me any money for that. It's a great question. It's a great point that I think a lot of creators came up and initially said. One of the things I think, from my perspective, that I want you guys to think about is a lot of the channels that are smaller and haven't reached the threshold yet on either subscribers or watch time hours, they're probably not driving the kind of views that money would make much of a difference anyway. I can promise you that. If you're driving under 4,000 hours of watch time, you might make $3 to $5 per 1,000 views. Somewhere in there is kind of like the average. Monetized views, the RPM is lower. You could be $1 of actual overall views. How many of them choose to be monetized? That's a big thing you have to think about. Is even though YouTube can show ads on all your content, and even when you're in the YouTube Partner Program, you'd think like, oh, I put ads. I want ads at the beginning. I want an ad in the middle. I want an ad at the end. YouTube doesn't always show all of those ads, even though you've placed them there, because YouTube factors in, you know, what the experience is for the viewer, right? So if someone just watched 2 videos and both of them started with an ad, even though your video's up next and you said I set it up so there would be an ad at the beginning, YouTube may choose not to show that ad because of viewer experience. They actually factor that in, and they don't want to keep serving too many ads based upon what the creators have said, where the ad should go. They kind of mix it up. So sometimes your ad shows, sometimes it doesn't. Depends where your video is placed during that particular viewer's watch session. I've seen it happen a lot where some people go like, the ads aren't showing on my channel. It's like, well, they are. It's just maybe someone else. If you've watched 2 other videos and they had ads, they may not have served you one on your own video. So I think that's one thing to think about. Another thing to think about, if you're only making maybe $1 or $2 per 1,000 views, and you think about the watch time that drives, if you haven't made it to 4,000 watch hours in the last year, I mean, YouTube won't even, and it's AdSense, Google won't even pay out until you earn $100. You have to hit the $100 threshold, then they'll make the payment. Unless you close your account. So if you're sitting there earning, you have to hit the $100, and once it's $100 or over, they pay out like the 21st, 22nd of the month, and then the cycle starts again, and you start collecting. So if you make enough to get paid every month, they'll pay you. If you make under what you need, under the $100 threshold, they'll just hold on to it, and then they'll add that to the next month wait till it hits 100, and then they'll pay you. So what you want to think about is is this really an impact on you? Does this really do something to you as a smaller creator that hurts you? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that the pennies you would have lost, like say in a year, if you're under 4,000 watch hours, you might have ended up making, in a year, you may have made $100 maybe in a year. It might be $8 or $10 a month on a good month. Is that something that, to a small creator, do you feel that is something that really bugs you monetarily or not? Give me a quick yes or no. Yes, it bothers me that even if it's a small amount of money, I still should get it. Or no, at the end of the day, I don't really care about the small dollars. I'm just trying to hit the monetization threshold and get bigger so I can make real money. So 09999 says no, not really a big issue. Not completely affected by it. I kind of agree. I kind of feel the same way, that it's like, yeah, that doesn't really bother me. But Tejas says, yes, it will definitely affect the watch time. It could, Tejas. That's a good point. I'm getting a lot of yeses. I'm seeing yes from Torchlight, yeah from Satya. Desadam, 100 is a lot. I'm talking about US dollars. Depending on your region, you may only get a much lower RPM. If you're in a country that might be, and I'm not dissing any countries, but some countries just strategically have a much lower RPM. When you get into India, Indonesia, you have to get a lot more views to raise $1 than you would here in America, just because of the market. But I don't know what they think. I guess more people tend to buy when they see ads in America. There's more dollar spending than there is in some other countries. So there's a ranking. And even we're not the top. I say we, America. I see countries like British Columbia. I see New Zealand is way up there. When I get my RPM and CPM from New Zealand, it's like twice what I would make on a US ad. So yes, I see yes. A lot of people. Sweeney Dunstan said no, it's not a huge deal for him. I feel like there's more yeses than no's. More people say yeah, it would affect me. We all need money. Here's a great one. Nelson says, yeah, we need money in this COVID time. I don't disagree. And sometimes you're right. Even like $10 could be big difference. But Paul Peck makes a great point. What would you do if YouTube started charging creators monthly to upload instead of running ads? Would creators like that better? That's a great question, Paul. That's a great question. One of the things I've always thought about when I talk to people, think about what you get on YouTube. They host your videos for free. If they'll recommend your content, they provide the search engine, they provide the audience, they build the platform, they give you most of the tools you need to be successful. Some people would argue there could be better tools, but I think the tools get better every day. So you have all of these things that are really accessible to you for no cost. And YouTube is a revenue-driven platform that relies on advertisement. So the way they make their money is by running ads. That's how they say, we'll give it to you guys for free, but we're going to collect money by running ads, and we'll share in that ad revenue. So I guess there is a question in there, Paul. Is it fair that they should change the policy and add ads to smaller channels and not give them at least maybe a deferred payment, right? Maybe collect that amount of data and say, okay, listen, we're going to serve ads, and whatever money that is, it may be small. The way that YouTube does it now is they give you, correct me if I'm wrong, it's I think 55% of the money they collect in ads they give to you as a creator, and the other 45 they keep. So maybe there's some people who could argue, well, why don't they just save my portion up? And if I hit monetization, then give it to me then, right? If I reach the goal, then give me the option to cash out the same way you would if I were monetized. And then but I didn't make enough money in the first 3 months to cash out. I didn't hit the $100 threshold. Maybe it took me 6 months to hit that, but I don't care. It's still $100. It's something that might buy me a new microphone. It might buy me a new piece of equipment that I need, a new set of headphones or something. So there is an argument to be made that there's probably different ways this could have been handled. That not to say that they've done it wrong, but there's different ways that make people go, I don't know. Don't you feel like we kind of could have done something a little bit different here? Maybe, maybe we could have thought about creators a bit and given them a little bit of the piece of the action. Because I do feel like sometimes, I feel like sometimes creators are undervalued on the platform. I feel like we know we're here on leased land. We're here on leased land. YouTube owns the platform. So when they put us here and they allow us to do all this stuff, at any point we could get kicked off the platform. Anything could change. So does that mean that we shouldn't be able to, while we're here, make what we can make, kind of like an athlete? While you're in the league, pay us, even if it's minimum. Just give us some money for the things if you're earning money off our content, give us a slice of the pie. So I do kind of get that. I get that argument. Another argument I would say is for small creators. Now, how many of you guys think about this? Let me ask you guys this question. I want to get your input. How many of you think that ad revenue, or just ads in general, playing on your content as a smaller channel would hurt the viewer experience? Like, people are watching your videos right now, there's no ads, and then suddenly there's ads there that you don't have any control over. Yes, if you think that if that hurts the viewer experience for your channel, or no, if you think no, that doesn't really change much. Give me a yes or no down in the chat. And let me see which way we lean on this, because I want to see what you guys think. I know what I think, but I'm always interested to see what you guys think about it. Because yes, I'm right there. Now there's the big one. I got Facebook user. You got some of this. I'm also streaming to my private group, so some of these are showing up in my private group. And we're not actually seeing some of those names. It's just Facebook user. So one of the things I would say is yes. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Yes. It's like my pal Iggy from This Bites For You. He says, yeah, that's, Mr. Paul Peck. Thank you for joining along, pal. Make sure you know the deal, Paul. Go to my, after this, go my channel. I have a memberships tab there. And it has the link to the Facebook users group, which is our members only group. Make sure you join that group. That's a great group. So yes, I'm seeing yes. Iggy says yes. I'm seeing Gearvlog says hey to Paul Peck. You can never not say hey to Paul Peck. Torchlight says yes. I think that's legitimate. So let me ask you guys, the people who said yes, that you feel this will affect. Let me see. Yes, in the middle of yes, if it's in the middles and the viewers stop watching. Good point. You'll only see those in the middle if it's an 8-minute or longer video. But that's an excellent point. Yes, it could show up and it could change it, because I think that's the big question. If right now you're not monetized and you don't have ads on your channel, which as of the 18th it actually started, so you may start seeing them. But up until this point, if you didn't have ads on your channel, were you planning to run ads and get monetized and run ads? Because if you were, I kind of feel like, I don't know that it matters as much. Like right here, TG Tech and Games says, yes, I think that affects, the viewer experience. But I would ask TG Tech and Games, do you think that, I don't know if you are monetized or not, but if you were, would you run ads? Or have you decided I was never planning on running ads? Because that's one of the things I thought about. I thought about, what if you had given an option to the creators and said, listen, I never plan on running ads on my channel ever. Can I permanently opt out of ads? So like, don't run them now, but that means you would be locked into never being able to monetize ever. Like, could you do that? And when I asked myself that question, I went, I don't know if that works. I don't know if that works, only because if you went ahead and did that, it would put you in a position where you can't change your mind down the line. And one of the things that YouTube is built upon is that at any point you can join the YouTube partner program, you can leave the YouTube partner program, you can be in the YouTube partner program and turn ads off. So you always have these options to play with how you set up your channel. Do you want mid-roll ads? Do you want ads to come at the end or at the beginning? Should they be skippable ads? Should they be non-skippable ads? Should they be ad overlays? So one of the things I guess you do have to think about as a small creator is, hey, I never wanted to run ads ever. I never planned on it. I just wanted to make this channel, and that was the thing. I never wanted ads to interrupt my content. And now you're kind of being forced into that. And here's one of the things where I had a problem. Let me see if I can find this portion for you. And it's not a problem. I always feel like YouTube doesn't always choose the best language when they put new features out. Whenever they add something, they have new changes. I'm always like, why is there so limited language? It's hard for me to understand, what exactly that you're saying. I'm gonna have to dig it out here. But one of the things that they don't really get into is they don't really explain if, like once they don't explain to you, listen, does this mean once I monetize, I can still turn off ads? Because my goal was always not to run ads. And if that's the plan, then does that motivate you to run out there and go, well, now I really want to get monetized because I want the option of turning these ads off. I want to get away from the ads that are on my videos because I never wanted that to happen. But I don't know if that's would that motivate you? Do you think that? Let me ask an honest question. Anyone out there? Is there anybody who's planning on not monetizing their channel right now? Do any one of you have you reached the threshold of monetization and decided not to monetize, or are you not monetized yet and your plan is never to monetize? So if either one of those, if monetization is off the table, then put no, I don't ever want to be monetized. If your goal is to get this thing monetized and make money, put a yes. I want to kind of get an idea how many no's, how many people are like, nope, I never want to be monetized. It's not even something I ever thought of and I don't plan on it. Even if I had the option, I wouldn't take it. So this is something that might offend you a little bit more. Like, I can't believe they did this to me. Oh, wow. You know what? There's a few. There's a my friend. I like money. Yeah, but there's some me. Mr. Shahir says me. No. I mean, there's people. Nelson saying me. I won't. Okay, Nelson. If you decide, I can understand that. I'd be interested to see why you wouldn't want to be monetized. I've always had the feeling that if you are building a channel, why not get paid for it? There was a time right when they started introducing more of the ads and sharing it and doing all that stuff. That some creators did get like, oh, it's going to ruin the experience. And I always kind of said, I don't know. I think people got used to it so quickly that as long as they're not flooded with ads, let me turn off the fan here. As long as you're not flooded with ads, I don't think it's an issue. I'm used to the ads now, and you can go with, YouTube Premium, and you can, pay a few bucks and then you never see ads. But a lot of people don't like paying the extra money, but I do it a lot of times. We'll pay for it just to get rid of the ads. So that's one way to do it. I think that that probably is a concern. If I were a young creator and saying, look, I never wanted to be monetized, and now you stuck this with me, that can be problematic. Let me ask another question. Here's another thought we discussed. In the YouTube partner program, we can't specifically say, well, I should say that there's two options here. You don't specifically control who runs ads before your content or during your content. They've changed that recently, and you actually can make contracts with specific advertisers. They're coming up with this new ability it's one of the new things they're working on, is the ability for creators to actually make private deals with different companies to put ads in front of your content and during your content, so you can sort of create your own advertising structure. So instead of anyone just bidding for ads, you could reach out to somebody and say, hey, I only want this one company to advertise in front of me, and I'll give you guys a deal. You want to make a deal with me? We'll lock you in, right? But now with no control, because you might have ads and you're not monetized, there could be political ads that are ahead of your channel that you don't want in there. You're like, I don't want that crap. I could have opted out of political ads. If I were in the partner program, I could say, I don't want political ads, or I don't want Viagra ads, or something like that before my content. So it's something that you have to think about. You really have to say, that could be potentially something that you want to that you don't want to have happen. We've got a super chat in here. Let me find it. The chat moves so quickly sometimes. Right here, I truly feel first of all, thank you for the $10 super chat, Suburban Beard. suburban beard. What is this? What do I have? I have more of like a urban beard. I truly feel no ads helps people as they are growing. But if they run ads, they should at least give us YT Premium for free. We may see more live shows because of this. That's an interesting take. So let me see this. So you're saying, so let me get, this is an interesting take. You're saying that you believe that they shouldn't, that no ads helps people grow. That's a general, you think that's a general statement. You would keep ads off if you were smaller and the money maybe wasn't really all that big a deal anyway. It might be $10 every now and then. But if they're going to force ads on a smaller channel, that they should give you, let me refine that question, Mr. Suburban Beard. Do you think they should give all of the small channels who are having ads run on their channel premium for free so that that would offset it? That you go, okay, guys, I know we're running ads, but we're going to allow you to watch content without ads. That's an interesting proposition. It's an interesting proposition right there. It's kind of interesting. I think that's a cool idea. The problem is the vast majority of people put content on the platform. They'd be giving, YouTube Premium away to almost everybody, because the percentage of channels that reach monetization is actually pretty small. Once you get into the YouTube Partner Program, I can't remember the numbers, but it's a fairly small percentage. It's not 50%. It's 10 or 20% of the channels on the platform are monetized, or it's maybe slightly higher. I'm misrepresenting that. I haven't checked the most recent data, but it wasn't an overwhelming amount. I remember when my channel got to 10,000 subscribers, that was like, that put me up into like the inside of the 1% of channels on the platform. I think I'm down into like the top 0.6% of channels, and my channel is really small, but it just shows you how small like the really successful channels are. To get from the 0.1 the 1% to the like top 1,000 is might as well be 100 years away, right? Because I'm like 150 something thousand subscribers, but like the big channels are millions. I'm like, I will never reach that. As hard as I try, I can't imagine hitting 1 million subscribers. That's just such a huge mark. If I could hit 500,000, I'd be like, oh, there we go, we did something today. So that's an interesting I like the offset. I kind of do feel like that it would have been nice if they had offset that with something else. If they had said, listen, yes, we're going to put ads on your channels, but we're going to do something in return. I like some of the ideas that you guys are coming up with, though. These are pretty good ideas. Let's see. Hold on. Here's a great question here. Let me see. Hey, let me see this. Hey, what if an ad played on my video and gets a guideline strike? Will it affect my channel? It's a good question, but you know what? Ads have to be approved. It's sort of a separate beast. It goes through YouTube, and then it goes really through Google. And those ads have to be approved before they run. And if for some reason there's a problem with them, I've seen, back in the day, I'd run some Google ads, and there might be something that Google used to have a weird thing. So did Facebook sometimes, that if you use too much text or something like that, then they could take your ad down. So it wouldn't affect your channel so much, Harish Sakesh. What it would probably happen is they would just take that ad down if it wasn't appropriate for what they were, if it didn't meet the advertising guidelines. But that wouldn't put any kind of channel strike on you. But what could happen is it could be kind of stuff that you're like, I don't want this on my channel. I don't want this advertising in front of my channel. That's kind of like no, thank you. No, thank you. So that is a valid point. That is a valid point. Let me see. What do we got here? Hey, a $9.99 super chat from the Epic Desk. Maybe lower the eligibility for YPP. Boy, you know what? Let me ask that question. That's a great question, Epic Desk. I like what you're thinking. How many of you feel that the current eligibility to become monetized is too high? How many think it's just right? And how many think it's too low, that it should actually be higher? Put, too high, too low, just right into the chat. Let me get a feel for what you guys think. Because I tell you what, before I was monetized, I thought it was way too high, because my channel used to be monetized. I had another channel that I used for embedding, and it had tons of watch time, but I didn't build it as a channel. So it never really had subscribers. And then I was like, all of a sudden one day I'm not monetized anymore. I'm like, hey, I used to make a couple $100 a year here, or whatever, $300-400 a year would just roll in. It was nice. Every few months would be $100 in my account. Well, that was cool. And then he took it away, and I was like, "Hey, man, you took my monetization away." And I had to learn this was quite a few years ago when the first adpocalypse came through. Let's see. Let's look at this across here. Ted Play says too high. It's too high. Got to be too high. And then Cold Haven says it's way too high. It's not only too high, it is way too high. All right. I get that. Danny Hatcher says it's just right. Lori Woody says just right. That makes no sense. Brothers Music says very high. Okay. And Marlon from White Noise Studio says just right. Just made it. Rizalino TV says it's fair. I think I kind of feel the same way. We're back and forth, either fair or high. I haven't seen anyone say it's too low. I haven't seen anyone say that it's too low yet. That's kind of funny. I think it's just right. YouTube needs to have the right channels apart from the program. It's too low. People would just be making multiple small channels. Yeah, one of the reasons, so that you understand, too high, man. I love this one. Where is that? Oh, I just missed it. Too high, man. I got to show that one. There we go. Satya Suchek. That's too high, man. I hear you. One of the reasons they did this originally, you have to understand, is there was a lot of people that were making these channels and they were just spamming sorry, I never say crap stuff. They were spamming stuff all over the platform. And they were doing it in a way that like advertisers were having their stuff put in front of content that was junk. And the advertisers went, why? I'm paying you money to be in front of that. It's pure garbage. It was pure spam. And what happened was the advertisers started to revolt and say, like, we want no part of that. We want no part of that. And that was a really important thing. Listen, I have to say something here, guys. The reason I wanted to talk about this today was I had watched Roberto Blake's video, and I want to make sure you know that in the description of this live stream, I have put the link. So if you're watching this on the replay, you're watching it afterwards, click in the description and you'll see Roberto Blake went through this really, really well. And he really had some really great points that he brought up that helped me even get my head wrapped around some of the implications that could possibly affect us creators. And I kept thinking, man, if only Roberto Blake was here now.
What's up, Daniel?
And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Roberto Blake. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing good this morning. How about you?
I'm good. Hey, everybody, welcome Roberto Blake to the chat. Now, listen, Roberto, I put your video in the link, a link for it in the description of this particular live stream. I watched your video, and I thought you had some great points. Just talking about how this can affect some of the creators out there. When you saw this roll out, now, were you aware of this? Because I know you're in a little bit tighter than I am. Were you aware of this coming before it happened?
Before it happened? No. But I'd been hearing from people that they were seeing it happen weeks ago, And I was under the impression that this probably was happening even before then.
Right. So when it first rolled out, when you first saw this thing hit, what was your initial gut? What was the first thing that ran through your head?
Well, since my channel is monetized, the royalties thing was the first thing that I paid attention to, especially since I just had a conversation with my accountant, and I'm looking at getting my tax stuff together for next year, as we all should be preparing for our taxes right now. It's probably a thing to do. And then also we've seen so much things in the news about the tax code and about potential changes to the tax code, but also how certain people take advantage of it. That's been making me think about my business as I plan for 2021. So that was the first thing for me. And then I thought about the smaller channels and also my own channels that aren't quite monetized yet, such as my podcast, for example. And also the podcast that I do with my friends, Romina and Audrey. So I'm not unaffected by this. It's just not affecting my main channel. But I have new channels that I plan to launch too.
It might surprise some people out there to know that you have channels that aren't monetized, because we think of your channel as, a channel that's been around for a long time and is so far past so many subscribers. It's been around forever. It's such a big channel that, so like you have other channels that actually are not monetized that. Now, on those channels, did you intentionally try? Would they be affected? Do you feel that those ads now showing up on that content impacts the viewer experience on that channel?
I feel like for the momentum and growth of a channel, that I think it's a small percentage of viewers, but there are viewers that advertising, and I would say that they're not the audience that you want anyway, to be very honest, unless you're like more of an entertainment channel or you're catering to a very young audience, then that I would say is a little bit different. And that's a lot of people on the platform. Don't get me wrong. That's probably the majority of people in the platform are doing entertainment, and the largest audience on YouTube is young, but I don't cater to younger viewers. So for my channels, it's probably not as big of an issue. And anybody that would be put off by, oh, I have to sit through an ad and I'm not going to watch the video at all, is not the audience I'm trying to cultivate in the first place. So it's like, I can lose those people. It's not a big deal for me. However, if I were an entertainment channel, if I were doing a gaming channel, or I were doing a Star Wars channel, then I could see how that audience could be put off and it could affect my viewer experience. I'm more concerned if they put mid-rolls in something like a podcast or live stream replays. I'm more concerned with mid-rolls. I don't believe, however, we'll have to see, that I don't believe there will be aggressive mid-rolls in long-form content. And that long-form content, as you and I both know, is usually what helps small channels get their 4,000 hours of watch time.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the first things I thought of, Roberto. I went, what about channels like ASMR channels that are all right here, trying to keep it quiet, and they're just trying to get you in a mood. And then all of a sudden, hey, welcome to the new advertisement that's in the middle of your video. You go, oh, man, that can be problematic. So the first thing I thought of is, it's sometimes creators like us, we think from our perspective, how it affects our content, the way we create, but there's a lot of different types of content out there that's like meditation music and stuff that's just designed not to be interrupted.
I have a lot of clients like that. And again, even the podcast that I do with Ramin and Audrey, it's like, we don't necessarily want that interrupted with ads, and we aren't like, we want that channel monetized because it'd be nice for it to at least pay for its podcast hosting, because I pay for the podcast to be audio. And we'd like to have control over the ads and the viewer experience.
Right. Well, there's a good point right there. 09999. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that. But that's a good point, because if you're just making content that you then want to take the audio from, expecting it to be uninterrupted, but all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, now I got to increase the amount of time I spend editing by trying to find the ads that just cut up my podcast that I
well, when you record the podcast either to your hard drive or you download it with StreamYard, you won't have to worry about that.
Right. But some people don't do that. Some people do rely on if they live stream straight to YouTube and they want to take the audio from their live stream. Well, I guess you could still do that. Right?
Actually, when you download in the back end of YouTube Studio, you would have just the file. So like, you won't have to increase the editing. Right. It will just be the playback viewer experience and not having as much control there.
Right. That's a good point, because you can go into Studio and you can download copies of pretty much anything that you've uploaded, which I always thought was a great feature that a lot of people don't use. I've done that. Sometimes I've lost a video.
My only issue is I don't believe you downloaded in the absolute full quality, and I don't believe that I believe it's very compressed.
It is. You can download a video back to yourself. It takes you, it'll take me 15 minutes to upload a 4K video that's kind of long. It'll take me 30 seconds to download it again, take it right off of YouTube. So it's extremely compressed. Let me ask you this one question, because you talked about it, Roberto. The third thing that I was talking to everybody about over here, let me clear the screen, was from when they were giving us the summary in the email, they said, the royalty payments and tax withholdings for creators entitled to revenue payments, such payments will be treated as royalties from a U.S. tax perspective, and Google will withhold taxes where required by law. And I thought that was an interesting thing that we should talk about, because I was talking earlier. I said, a lot of us are used to getting just deposits into our bank account in the U.S. And then in the U.S. we would receive what they call a 1099, which is almost like we're subcontractors. You'd get, hey, this is how much money we paid you. You're responsible for the tax liability. We're just declaring that money that we earned, we gave X amount back out, so it's an expense for us. And it was left at that. So how does now changing this into a royalty situation affect us as creators?
Well, it's important to note that neither you or I are certified public accountants, nor are we financial advisors.
This is just opinion.
So with that in mind, you have to, you would want to talk to your CPA, your tax people, to know the specifics of your situation. But as you know, Daniel, and you've employed people before, there are issues where the government here in the U.S. might need to garnish sheet your taxable income for things like maybe child support, alimony payments, liens, debts that have not been accounted for, and they do that through your taxable income. By YouTube doing this as royalties and this counting as royalty income, the withholding is if the government, for any reason, not to mention the fact that as a company, YouTube and Google have to account for the fact that the tax code may change, and that is on the table. We're not getting political, but elections have consequences for businesses. And when elections have consequences for businesses, that affects those of us who are doing self-employed ventures. YouTube being a self-employed venture, if not a business that you've incorporated as an LLC or an S corporation, and so on and so forth. So we are operating much in the same way as performers or entertainers do as self-employed people. When you're a performer or entertainer, if you were an actor, an actress, a musician, and you know this from the music days, Daniel, unless you're signed to a label, in which case you're kind of an employee. But if you're independent and you're performing, which is YouTube is a venue, if anything, YouTube's a venue. So we're being paid by the venue, but we're not an employee of the venue. And with that in mind, though, we are self-employed. That's why we get a 1099 tax form. And so when you're self-employed, you have to pay attention to these things, and you have to unfortunately watch the news sometimes because you need to figure out and understand, well, how is this going to affect my venture? Because you're a performer, you may not think of yourself as a business, and you may not act and operate as a business, but you are responsible for how you earn, how you pay taxes, and understanding how to turn these things to your advantage or to limit your liability.
Right.
So
there's a big
that's
point
the whole
there.
thing.
That's sort of withholdings, which is, it's tax jargon for anybody who hasn't sat with accountants like I have my entire life being self-employed. That is one of the things when you're used to sort of just collecting money from whichever source you're used to collecting it and then depositing it in your account. And then
for most people, again, a paycheck. They think of YouTube just like I get paid once a month. They think of it as a paycheck.
Right. But but thinking it like a paycheck now is a great example, because I've always gotten paid as a self-employed person, not like a paycheck. They give me the money and then I'm responsible for removing the taxes and paying the government here locally, and in any region you would be liable to do the same, the tax liability. Now changing to this royalty situation does open potentially, and it's just opinion, we'll see how this rolls out for each individual, please consult your local CPA. Yeah. But what could happen is you may be used to making X amount of money every month from driving X amount of views, but you may find that when you get your deliverable into your account, it's a smaller number, and you go, wait, why is this smaller? And it's because there are other entities that may have enforced a withholding from that payment that makes and it's not that you lose the money, because at the end of the year, if you're doing your job,
you have to pay taxes regardless.
You have to pay taxes. But just like you get a paycheck from a job now, and you'll see, in the US, X amount went out to FICA, X amount went out to Social Security, and then you balance that equation based on your total revenue and your exemptions, and then you figure out how much you actually owe. It's the same thing, but now right now, YouTube just hands you all of the money, no withholding.
Yeah, and right now, the thing is, we don't know that they will withhold. They're saying that if the government makes them do that, then that will happen, and to be aware of it. And I'm sure as we see what happens in the first quarter of the year, if those changes, and we'll keep everyone up to date to the best of our ability. But the thing is, first of all, if you're a small YouTuber, even if you just got monetized, you're not going to really make that much money. I'll be very blunt with you about that. Even if you had, a higher level CPM or even RPM like me, and you were getting like $10 per 1,000 views, I've done the math, and you'd end up with like a penny a view. So don't get it twisted here. You're not making or missing so much money, and you're not missing out on something. Most creators who couldn't meet the monetization requirements were not making the payout threshold for months at a time, if ever at all. So you're not really missing that much. I know it feels that way, but this is all psychological, Daniel. The real consequences are only really the viewer experience. This is not something, someone who had the ambition to be the next Mr. Beast, this will not daunt them, this will not faze them, and they will win, and they will deserve to win. And that's not a slight to anybody else who's feeling bad. I'm saying you don't control this platform. It is a tremendous opportunity. You don't have to pay for the free hosting of 4K videos. You don't have to pay for the bandwidth of live streaming. I went over my bandwidth with my cable company, Comcast, over the summer because, we were streaming more because of, different things. Actually, this was last year. I went over my bandwidth, and Comcast charged me like $600 more.
Whoa.
Now, because of the super chats from the live streams, it ultimately didn't matter, but I didn't profit. You see what I'm saying? I broke even on it because YouTube, and it made me grateful to YouTube. YouTube was not charging me for the bandwidth of the live streaming. My cable company was. I was imagining, what if I had to pay for the ability to broadcast and live stream and the bandwidth and to reach an audience? What if I had to pay for the web hosting and my uploads? If I had to pay YouTube for the traffic and bandwidth that they're giving me for free to deliver my videos, even I would struggle to afford that. So I look at it as an opportunity because since I'm 36, I remember when we only had 20 megabytes, guys, of free hosting on GeoCities and AngelFire. You don't understand how expensive this used to be. And I also have websites where I pay for things like my coaching business and everything like that. I pay thousands of dollars for my systems and my hosting and to run my business operations. But YouTube is the least of my expenses. Aside from buying cameras and things, YouTube is my least expense because it charges me nothing and it pays me to market myself.
Right. Well, I agree. I mean, one thing you have to realize is once you start getting a little bigger and you're actually talking about a serious amount of income, or something that would be taxes and things would even be applicable to, because you have to remember, in general, in the U.S. anyway, you make less than $600 on any sort of income, separate income, it's pretty much stuff that you don't even really have to show if it's a separate entity. So the first $600 of sort of what used to be unclaimed, you can kind of not really have, YouTube never had to worry about.
If you're a smaller channel, then it's just, you can reinvest that. You could probably even just from reinvesting that back into your channel to reinvest in the growth, you would actually be doing it at a loss. And then you get to claim those deductions and those expenses. Right. And so as for the royalties, again, without being a CPA, what I will tell you is it's usually taxed as normal income with a general rate. So you'd probably be looking at 15% on royalties on average, or just whatever your overall income level is. But the good news is, with it being royalty income, it will help you with regard to when you need to explain what you do for a living. You'll be able to, on any bank paperwork, say you're an entertainer, and you'll be able to show that this is classified as royalty income when you take your 2 years of taxes to buy a house or a commercial property, if you need to rent like a warehouse to do your stuff. Like John Hill recently started with his skateboarding stuff. He rented a warehouse to make his own kind of dream factory like Robert Dyrdek. Nice. And you would have to imagine, though, that one of the challenges, Marquez had this problem too. The challenge is when we want to do anything with real estate, whether we want to buy a home or get a place for our business or lease an office, showing our income and proving our income and explaining what we do for a living is very difficult, because this is a new industry that has existed, maybe like it's been popular for 8 years, guys. Being a YouTuber is a recent phenomenon. It's been popularized for 8 years. The platform has existed for 15 years. It's not been accommodated in the US tax code. And the FTC just started regulations with regard to social media entities, because it's an industry that's less than maybe 20 years old. It didn't exist. All of this stuff happened after I was 22 years old already. So you have to understand, our tax code, our legal system, our society has not acclimated to your lifestyle as a content creator and to your earnings and your business venture. It didn't exist.
And that's a weird bias that happens out there. It's funny you should say that. Like one of my good friends that I've known for years was a drum tech for Aerosmith. Right? He's working for at the time the biggest rock band in the world, on the planet. He went to buy a house. They were touring. They were huge. They were big. Guns N' Roses were opening up for Aerosmith. These are the biggest tours on the planet. He'd been doing it for years, and he went to buy a house. He had plenty of money. He was doing great. And the banks looked at him like, I'm sorry, we're going to have trouble financing the home. And he had enough money to go, like, I could put tons of money down. I want to finance the other half. And they looked at him like, there's just no, we don't understand what it is you do. What is this you do? You go set up drums for some musician band thing? Like, they couldn't wrap their heads around it, which isn't much different than where we're at now. We're trying to explain to a bank if we're trying to finance a new home, do a mortgage. And what did you do for a living? Well, me and my pal Roberto, we go on YouTube. we make videos and we talk about stuff. It's very hard for people to understand what that payment is. So I do see the advantage of putting it into a royalty paradigm. I use that word too much. It makes a lot of sense. I think it's easier for other entities to understand what royalties are, and as we move forward financially, you can say, "Oh, these are the royalties I make."
It also differentiates it from how they're doing things with, say, Prop 22 in California with regard to gig workers who do, say, Uber, DoorDash, so on and so forth, where you also get a 1099. You're not getting a W-2 in terms of your wages, in terms of traditional employment. So now we're creating these really important, I think, distinctions in earnings. And the thing is, Daniel, this is a paradigm because I talk a lot, and you know that the phrase that I've coined is the creator economy. And this is going to shape the future of work. It already is, frankly. It's shaping the future of work. It's a very important conversation. And I think that a lot of people who maybe just be doing this for a hobby or have fun, they feel like they're missing out on something, but it's like, you're not, unless you choose to take this seriously, very seriously, then don't worry about it and don't get overly, emotional about it. I mean, I wouldn't get as nearly, I do a lot of things that have been hobbies, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. It's like, hey, sometimes the rules change. Like when these card games change, your entire strategy and entire deck that you spent literally tens or hundreds of dollars on goes out the window, frankly. With YouTube, I don't know that it's nearly as serious in some cases unless you are a professional creator. In which case, when a major change happens, your stakes are different. Like when the policy changed on, say, prank videos or edgy content or something like that, entire genres of YouTube basically were obliterated in that case. In things you can't control, like a global pandemic, travel videos, gone. Channels that rely on collaborations, gone. Even large creators that you think don't have to worry about the money, Mr. Beast took massive losses, millions of dollars worth of investment in content out of the window, large investments in testing to keep his team safe, and not just of his friends on the videos, but the other 25 employees in the Mr. Beast business and brand, as well as anyone they want to collaborate. And it meant that doing anything involving strangers couldn't happen anymore. So they have that. And a lot of people don't realize that it's also about, when you're a YouTube content creator, especially the size of Mr. Beast, there's the legal liability that if you guys give somebody COVID, they're just going to sue you. So,
which hopefully,
for real,
we're all masked up out there, people.
Yeah, that's one of the things that people don't even, I'm not like getting political here. In fact, I hate that it's become political, but let's just think about it from a business standpoint. The mask thing is important because regardless of what anyone says, what any politician says, if you look into them, you will find that if they own a business, they require their employees to wear a mask, regardless of whatever they tell you on CNN or Fox News. They require their employees because they're not going to get sued, guys. And you should look at your business interest whenever you look at anything that's happening in the world. If you're trying to do this seriously as a creator, if this impacts you economically, always think the next step ahead. Well, what does this mean for my business? So when I saw all this happening, it's going to actually motivate me to get all of my smaller channels, my podcast channel, my clip show, my new gear channel, Real Talk with Roberto Blake, where I'm going to talk a lot more about personal finance and personal development. I want to get all of those channels to their 1,000 subscribers and with 4,000 hours of watch time as quickly as possible, either at the end of Q4 this year or the beginning of Q1 next year, because then I can control the viewer experience. So guys, in my featured channels on my channel, small plug, Daniel, and all of your creators like Nick Nim and anybody, if you can actually help us by subscribing to our secondary channels and also watching the back catalog of our content there whenever you have time, if you enjoy it, it helps us be able to give you a better viewer experience. We're not going to get a ton of ad revenue off of those things, but in fact, it means that if we want to disable ads and take back the control from YouTube on some of those videos, and also limit the types of ads that you might get. For example, I don't allow political ads on my channels. So if you want us to be able to control some of the viewer experience and take that control back from YouTube, you can help us get those channels monetized. The same thing for any smaller channels in your community, but don't subscribe to them if you are not going to watch. Do not do that. You are hurting their channel. No sub for sub. No, oh, guys, let's all support each other. If you're going to support each other, legit support each other and actually legitimately watch videos, like videos, comment on videos, engage, and show up for people and show up to their live streams. Do not fake it. Do not pretend. No half measures. If you're going to support creators, large or small, support creators, large or small. No half measures.
I agree. You know, and that's true because like a lot of the people that we know in our circles, like I know Brian G. Johnson has 2 channels. I'm subscribed to both because I watch both. Nick Nimmin has another clips channel that I watch, which is the live stream clips, kind of the highlights of the live stream because his live streams are epic. We know, we've been in on them.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to get those little pieces where he brings them down to digestible chunks and you go, oh, these are really like the highlight reels from his live stream. So it's really cool. I'm subscribed to 2 of your channels that I watch. So yeah, I totally hear that's a great way to approach it. This is the thing that I want to talk about while we're talking about this section though. When we talk about the smaller channels and getting monetized and how this can affect, one of the things I had a problem with reading this, and tell me what you think, Roberto, because this is one of the things, and in the chat, I'm going to ask the same question. If anybody has read the actual terms of service or the announcement, what did you think about the language out there? When I read it, I went, boy, it's just so vague. They leave so many holes in it. And I know that's partially intentional or absolutely intentional.
It's
but
legalese.
anyone in the chat, let me ask this question in chat.
I don't think it was that vague.
Do you think that the way they've written the new terms of service, do you think it explains it perfectly? Yes, it makes sense, or no, it seems a little vague. And let me pull this up, Roberto. Let me pull it up so we can actually take a peek.
Sure.
This is what I was talking about. Let me see if I can, maybe I can get a little more zoom.
Is it in the right to monetize itself?
Yeah. So
the concept.
Here's where it says, this is what they actually said right here in the right of monetize, right? Let me clear that. I'm just making a mess today. What it said is
Daniel just making a mess.
It's like my son, just crayons everywhere. You grant to YouTube the right to monetize your content on the service. And such monetization may include displaying ads on or within content or charging users a fee for access. That's
referring to YouTube Premium.
Yep. So that we understand pretty clear.
It's also referring to YouTube channel memberships where there's exclusive content.
But where that gets weird is if you read the second part, this agreement does not entitle you to any payments. Starting November 18, 2020, any payments you may be entitled to receive from YouTube under any other agreement between you and YouTube, including, for example, payments under the YouTube Partner Program, blah, 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 will be treated as royalties. And it just moves into how they're going to pay you. But what's funny is they don't specifically, I thought they could have added one line here, Roberto, that would have cleared things up a bit and said, whoops, I'm just going to put me. I'm the only guy that needs to be in the stream. They could have easily have said a little line that just said, anyone in the YouTube Partner Program, all existing guidelines remain unchanged. So that if you saw that and you said, wait a minute, YouTube now has the right to monetize all the content and display ads on any piece of content. What if I monetize and I say, but I've chosen not to show ads? That sort of ambiguity.
The thing is, they actually have a completely separate exclusive page that's dedicated only to the partner program and its overall policies.
But they didn't put a caveat in there to say that remains unchanged. And things like that to me are easy places where sometimes I feel YouTube, if you took an extra sentence, you could stop confusing
that's
people.
intentional. And the thing is, one, it's our responsibility. Like, I'll put it to you like this, Daniel. I don't think that the YouTube terms of service are vague, but I'm also a very litigious person in general. But I will tell you this, the YouTube terms of service, and this is like, I know people get frustrated and they think I'm white knighting and defending YouTube all the time and they hate that. And they're like, oh, you're not on our side. I'm like, I'm thinking rationally and strategically. I'm thinking objectively here. And I want you to listen to this sentence. The YouTube terms of service are no more vague and no more harsh. In fact, they are less so than almost any employment contract you have already signed. I guarantee it. I guarantee you that any employment contract, even at a McDonald's, and I know especially if you ever had worked for Blockbuster, because I can tell you stories about my friend who worked at Blockbuster.
I worked at McDonald's.
Yeah, but the employment contracts And the code of conduct for employees is infinitely more strict, infinitely more vague, infinitely more litigious, and infinitely more disadvantageous. If you work any 9-to-5 job, it is worse than the terms of service for YouTube. And I've also read the terms of service for some of these other platforms, and YouTube is being kind.
I agree. I agree. Now, listen, I have always said...
Read the TikTok terms of service sometimes, guys. It's horrific.
I have always said, like here's a perfect example. Hawk Gaming. Hey, Daniel Roberto, he must be newer to the conversation. Is it true creators are going to get screwed out of the ad revenue? In the sense that they will not be paying you any ad revenue if you're not in the YouTube Partner Program. Yes, Hawk Gaming, if you're not currently monetized, ads that they're going to start running on the unmonetized channels, you don't get a portion of. That's been our discussion. But one thing I will say, and I agree with you 100% here, Roberto, is I see what happens is there's two things that happen in this dynamic of every time YouTube creates a change. One, we always hear the conversations about, oh, YouTube's out to get small creators. They're screwing us again. They're not on our side. And I always tend to do the same thing. I keep going I kind of feel like we've been skating for a long time where they give us a lot of stuff and haven't asked for a lot in return. And I don't want to rock the boat when they do ask for something back. Like, well, we're going to throw ads on these smaller channels because we do provide a ton of bandwidth for small channels that aren't making us any money. Why don't we throw some ads on those?
Also, the possibility that, again, this debunks a lot of the things that people used to believe. For one thing, if people believed that YouTube videos don't get views if they don't have ads, and why would YouTube serve videos that don't make them money? Well, this just got debunked. And right. And there are big YouTubers with over 1 million subs, and I won't call anyone out, that constantly say this and they constantly use this example, but I keep saying YouTube's, like Google's money, yeah, they like the ads because they don't like having a loss leader, but they make so much money off of the data that they collect on us.
Yeah.
Wait,
I stay right there for a second because I want to clarify that statement for anyone who's got a smaller channel out there. What Roberto is saying is a lot of smaller creators have said, well, of course my content's not going to get recommended. There's no ads on it because I'm not monetized, and they only want to show content that has ads so they can make money. Well, guess what? We all have ads now. So if you ever felt like, well, my content's not going to get and they have said,
or any brand safe videos, even if you're not in the partner program. Yeah.
Right.
But think about it. They decided...
wait a minute. They've always said, YouTube has said, listen, those are two completely different systems. The AdSense system, the way we drive ad revenue, and the recommendation system are not integrated. But no matter how many times YouTube has said it, people go, yeah, I don't believe it.
Yeah, but if they didn't think that there was value in these channels that don't have monetization, they wouldn't be capitalizing on it now. If they didn't think that small unmonetized channels could go viral, and that they'd be missing out on money, they wouldn't be making this move now. So myth busted. YouTube just showed their hand and just disproved all this. And again, I've literally watched people with 2 million subscribers peddle this nonsense to creators for years. 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. Oh yeah, they don't monetize. They don't show videos that aren't monetized, or they suppress the, it's like, then why are they going to capitalize on that now if that were the case? So I always, again, follow the money. Again, I've also always said they are more interested in tracking user behavior and collecting our data than on the pennies per view. And I know this because I'm an advertiser. The pennies per view that they get on these things, it's great, but it covers cost. YouTube is a loss leader for Google. People look at that 20 billion in revenue. They never consider how much money it actually cost to run YouTube. And they keep not looking at the fact that YouTube has replaced television and beat it in every metric that matters. Every metric that matters, YouTube is beaten television. It is the new television. Mm-hmm. So if you think about 20 billion in revenue, and then you think about all the dollars in television broadcast advertising, it makes Google and YouTube look like peasants, to be honest, even though it should. YouTube still is not dominant and still doesn't have nearly enough market share in advertising compared to traditional media. More money was still spent on billboards in America this year than YouTube generated in revenue.
Right.
Let me remind you, in billboards.
Right, highway billboards, right? On the sides of buildings.
Billboards.
On the side of highway. Yep. Well, here's a great question.
Insanity.
From Russell says, will the earning patterns change? I don't specifically see that the earning patterns are going to change at all. There is a question that you could ask, though, Roberto. Well, does this mean that ads as a creator, like there were places that that, that if you're advertising your content, does it open any new doors? If you're someone who's actually has something out there that you're using ads to actually drive awareness of a new product, potentially, but it's all going to be on small channels that I don't think you want to be in front of anyway.
It depends on the sophistication of the ad managers and how they did that. One of the biggest problems, and something the advertisers never took responsibility for with regard to their complaints, was they never educated themselves about how to do targeted advertising using the Google Ads product anyway. And I know this because I used to be a Google Ads manager at a company, and I was the head of marketing at a company before I became independent. And I'll be just blunt about it. Everybody in that company, when it came to advertising and marketing, despite their rhetoric about being in business for 20 years, was incompetent when it came to digital advertising. They had no idea. I had to come in and I had to clean up the damn waste. I had to clean up the waste, and it's like so badly that they were crying about the $5,000 a month in ad spending. By the time I cleaned up the waste and made it efficient and optimized, we ended up spending $250,000 a year in ads, in Google Ads alone. Ads alone, we went from crying about a $25,000 ad budget to 10xing that ad budget because somebody cleaned up the waste and the inefficiencies and the nonsense and made it profitable to do advertising.
To the rescue! I love it. Hey, here's a question
I'm aggressive about that just because I'm trying to tell you that, like, there are a lot of, and Daniel, don't take this way because this doesn't apply to you. There are a lot of old farts out there that don't understand how YouTube and digital advertising and the new economy works, and they're in charge of multi-million-dollar budgets, and they have no idea what to do with them. And then they complain about wasted advertising, and they complain to YouTube about things like these small channels or these bad faith actors that their videos their ads appeared on, when they could literally put in exclusion rules. They could learn how the damn systems work. They can learn how to actually use a computer. But again, you have people who can barely use email, managing multi-million-dollar budgets and making decisions that impact all of us. And I'm sorry, that sounds ageist, but I want you to understand, when we talk about advertisers and marketing, we also have 30-something-year-olds like me who have to answer to those people and can't explain to them that we know better. So
that's a valid point. Now, listen, you know that I'm an old man.
I know.
So listen, pull up your pants and get the hell off my lawn. This is a question that came from Luke Cortman show. Will this drive traffic to small channels? I think we kind of covered that, Luke Cortman. The two systems are really they're separate. The ad revenue system, the way the advertising system is set up, and the way the recommendation system is, YouTube has always come right out and told us these are two completely different things. So I mean, you'll be the judge if you're a small channel and you've been watching the way your channel grows. If you all of a sudden have ads on and you see an immediate spike in all of your content and you've done nothing different, then you could send me those reports, because I'd love to see that data. But it's always been, to me, I can sit there and turn on my channel itself, I can turn ads on and off of all kinds of content, and I've never seen a change. I've never seen, the only changes I see are the typical changes I would see just based on recommendation and just the way, if a video is doing well or it's not doing well, those ebbs and flows. But I've never seen any drops. I've literally turned off advertising on certain content intentionally to see what would happen, and nothing happens.
I'll tell you guys this, because it's known, because you have to disclose sponsors, and so I'll share some data with you. This one I can talk about. I just can't tell you how much I was paid. That's all on the sponsored thing. But I will tell you that Google themselves became a sponsor through YouTube Brand Connect, the concierge service that FameBit became for when Google acquired FameBit. Google came to me as a sponsor and a client for one of my videos, and they requested in the agreement that there not be ads for the first 30 days on the video. Google and YouTube are the parent and child company relationship. Google owns YouTube. Do you really think that Google would pay me thousands of dollars to advertise Google ads on a business video, while also, by the way, telling me to disable Google ads, if Google ads being disabled would impact their ability to reach an audience through my content for the marketing of their own product? I know how meta this is, but hear me out.
Very meta.
It's meta. Google paid me to market Google on my YouTube channel for Google advertisements to business people. They aren't going to suppress videos without advertising and then pay you.
Wait,
to not
you
run
know, you know what's going to
advertising.
happen. Wait, you know there's going to be a tinfoil hat out there somewhere that will say, well, they probably went into the system and changed your channel so that it was affected differently. You got to remember, folks, that doesn't happen.
I'm a pissant channel compared to like a Graham Stephan or a Gary Vee.
Yes.
They're not going to make that kind of effort. They ain't got time for that, homie.
Yeah, right. And
Like,
it doesn't work
I might be big to y'all. I might be big to y'all. It's like from Google standpoint, oh, that's cute. Like, trust me, they ain't making that kind of effort on my behalf. They ain't hooking a brother up like that. All right. So
hey, quick question here from Danny Hatcher. When we're talking about that, by the way, it says with more videos being monetized, this is from Danny Hatcher, will CPM go down for everyone? What are your thoughts on that, Roberto?
Generally speaking, I understand that logic, but that will be probably true for the lowest grade tier. And I know most people don't understand this and I'll put it to you like this, and I don't have absolute proof to this, so just take this with a grain of salt. And take it from somebody who also, by the way, buys ads as a business and used to be Google AdWords certified. So grain of salt. I'm not making outrageous claims here, but the way that I tend to understand it and the way that it's also been put out there, if you actually watch, YouTube has a channel just for advertisers, by the way. So there's a lot of information that's really out there if you want to understand YouTube's and Google's business brain and how they see things and how the language that they use. And if you really want to understand when they try to communicate to the advertisers that make us money, or to advertisers like me who spent money, you learn a lot by seeing the other side of the conversation. And they put it out publicly. That's the interesting thing. And nobody looks into this. And I understand you're focused on making entertaining, cool content. Fine. But what I know is this. There are brackets and buckets and tiers of advertising. And value and channels are kind of put into their tiers based on a number of variables that we won't get into. But let's just say that, for example, myself, business channels, the real estate channels, we're in this tier of advertising where, and also the tutorial channels where we get like $20, $30 CPM rates, which sounds absurd. Whereas entertainers might get, if they're lucky, $2 and $5 CPM rates if they are a top tier channel. I know content creators with millions of subscribers that get $2 and $5 CPMs if they're lucky. Gaming channels, I think like one of the biggest ones I've seen gets like $8 CPMs. $8 as a CPM would actually be a downgrade for a channel like mine. I have a client who has 4,000 subscribers. He has a $40 CPM rate because he's a real estate channel. He has 4,000 subscribers. He makes like per 1,000 views twice as much as I do.
It's insane.
And
that's insane.
But that's because the classification of the audience that and the bucket of brands that would advertise on that channel, you're talking luxury watches, you're talking credit cards, you're talking financial institutions, you're talking business things like PayPal, you're talking about insurance companies.
Yeah.
I was at Google.
Who wants to be in front of that content, right? We're really saying, like advertisers say, you know, what is the content and do I want to be in front of that target audience?
So yeah, there's a bracket for and a bucket for like an affluent audience. Entertainment channels don't reach an affluent audience. And the thing is, more things than this affect those entertainment or general audience content because of broad audience and saturation, but also the fact that those places, the budget is spread more thin, not because, oh, there are more creators, but also because there are just more opportunities and they are trying to reach a broad audience, but also they're going to extract low-level value out of that broad audience. So and other things can impact that. You guys saw a decrease in your ad revenue if you're a general channel because there were less movie trailers and less TV shows released, and those have budgets that add to the pool of available ads to run. And so there's that aspect of it. I also, again, don't think that this is going to dry up inventory because this is not going to run on every single unmonetized video. It's still going to have to be something that passes the brand-friendly filter. The brand-friendly filter. And again, there were some commentary channels. There was Nerd City. They found that even after the secret codes video, they scraped the homepage of YouTube before YouTube obfuscated the code, the HTML code that you could see. I still have screenshots of it, and I still actually have a download of all that sweet HTML data. And the thing is, there are parameters and a grading system for determining how brand safe a video is at a video level. So channels don't necessarily get blacklisted, but videos get classified. And you and I, Daniel, and I've talked about this publicly, I keep telling people that metadata, whether it's titles, descriptions, or tags, and people say those things don't matter, they're all data, and your captions are all used for YouTube's classifiers for all of their systems. And there are multiple systems, the ad system being one, the view, the search and discovery system being one, qualifications for trending being one, which they now, I think they just want to call it explore, or the explore page, just like Instagram. And they shouldn't call it trending, because also they have multiple categories now. Trending is just a tradition, and it's something people understand. But the classifiers, guys, I mean, Daniel, I broke into trending, but in the news tab for the TikTok bans when, the president was making all of those statements about how his intentions to ban TikTok. I broke into the news tab on 2 of those videos. I was trending in news for a while. Like, there's classifiers that do that. I didn't even hit 1 million views, by the way. You don't have to go viral. There's classifiers. And people don't understand that their ad revenue. So, I mean, I guess the long-winded answer to this question is low tier and general audience content. And by low tier, I'm just talking about ad tier, will not be impacted. If you already weren't getting high CPMs, like, the fluctuation is going to be minimal. You would see more fluctuations based on events like the virus, general ad boycotts that could happen, or increases in advertising for holiday sales, or new emerging competitors that do large ad dumps, like what happened with Quibi, or new apps like Triller or TikTok. So the thing is, if you're a content creator, your fate is tied to the market.
Right.
Your fate is tied to the market.
That was one of the things I was saying earlier on before you showed up, Roberto, was you have to understand that from a percentage standpoint, a much smaller percentage of channels on the platform are monetized than are unmonetized. From a view standpoint, it's the top tier channels that are at the top, in the top 10% or less, that are really driving
the top 3% of channels take 90% of the traffic on YouTube, and according to a data scientist in Germany. Which is why I don't even think targeting suggested is as good as it's recommended to be, because that 70% of traffic is suggested, but 90% of the traffic on the platform goes to the top 3% of creators. So what are we talking about with suggested?
Yeah, well, there you go. But so then you think about it, to me, it almost feels like, and it's just opinion, is this YouTube is just saying, listen, it takes up bandwidth for all of these channels that we don't drive a lot of revenue from anyway. We don't drive a lot of views from. So why don't we try to offset a little bit of that by saying, well, we'll just throw some ads where we feel it might help out the business. So I don't really see, let me just throw this question up.
Google had its Q3 earnings call. So that doesn't shock me that, it's Q4 and we're making a change here that's profit positive. Like,
let me hit you with this question from Rashil. For example, this is one, he has a channel which is monetized, and people like people like him, and he doesn't want to earn from ads. So can he still turn the ads off? My understanding is that this in no way changes the options that you have as a monetized channel to say, I don't want ads to run. Is that, do you feel that that's
if you're a partner, if you're already a partner, the only thing that changes for you is the royalties part.
Okay.
That's why in my video, I kind of separated it into, here's the impact for people who are not part of the partner program. And then when you become part of the partner program, or if you're already in, here's what affects you. And then here are my thoughts. I separated my video kind of into 3 sections in 8 minutes for a reason. Yeah.
I think you have to. And I think part of the ambiguity in the wording is what I was trying to get back to. I wish they had thrown that one line in there saying, hey, listen, if you're in the YPP, nothing has changed for you in terms of how we will be displaying ads or your ability to control those ads. But they didn't. And that, to me personally, it's one of those things like, oh, guys, you could have given me one more sentence. Sentence.
Maybe they'll address that on one of their official channels or so on and so forth. But until they do, I'm just getting the views, apparently.
The great Andrew Can is in the chat room saying, when it comes to suggested, be your own best suggested traffic source.
That's my entire current 2021 strategy, by the way. And the thing is, I've already done a test on this, and I actually there's 2 of my videos that were released back to back that did over 100,000 views, and this is exactly the reason, and it's they're piggybacking off of each other. And it's also why I know people don't love it, but again, things people criticize me for, but niching down is actually right now the growth strategy required strategically for 2021. Niching down just doesn't mean what people always thinks it means, but it does. I was talking to you this morning about this, and I was talking to people on Twitter about this. I've done, now that I have these 4 channels, and it'll be better, by the way, when you guys help me monetize them. I'll be able to have more data to compare, because since I have a clips channel and I'm also going to test YouTube shorts on that channel, I have a lot of testing that I can get out of it. But I also have that, and then I compared the extreme of shorts to the extreme of the podcast to my middle form content on my main channel, and also my Real Talk with Roberto channel. And I measured everything you can think of. I measured average view durations and looked at my most successful and least successful videos. I measured retention rates. I did a new format that guarantees me a 50% retention rate now, which I didn't have before in most videos. I have a 40 or higher percent completion rate. I tested that even with lower, with shorter videos. I'm about to test that with 15-minute plus videos with the same editing style and see how that works. I tested all these variables, Daniel, and I came to a conclusion. I measured it in my most successful videos. Yes, it's obvious that they have the most watch time, but even my lower channels, watch time within watch time velocity, not view velocity, watch time velocity was the deciding factor in video performance, and click-through rate. Click-through rate, the combination of click-through rate. Now, the click-through rate doesn't always have to be higher double digits either. It has to be sufficient to provide enough watch time in a certain period of time.
Yep. Well, that's
so a shorter video.
One of the things we always try to explain to a lot of the creators out there, I've said this a lot, and we're going to derail here for a second, is that metrics are easy for smaller creators to get so pressed against. They press their nose against single metrics that they don't, I feel they don't see the forest for the trees, because they start looking at
that's
like
why I'm going
CTR,
to simplify it.
You know, I think that what you have to understand is, you know, videos that drive, you know, that get, you know, billions of impressions are going to have a lower click-through rate. So if you just look at click-through rate alone, it doesn't give you the information you need to understand. Videos that are driving a lot of watch time don't need quite the click-through rate that a shorter video would, because you've got to understand that YouTube deals in the commodity of expected watch time per impression. So so sometimes shorter,
predictability,
smaller, right. So sometimes shorter videos can do things that a longer video can't, but a lot of times you'll see them do well when they have a higher click-through rate, because they only deliver so much watch time. So getting them clicked a lot is the thing that'll really get them to explode.
Exactly. And therefore, I've come to the conclusion that what you have to strive for is, in the planning and ideation and strategy phase of your channel, you have to put everything into viewer intent. It has to be viewer intent, and it has to be attention, and it has to be viewer interest. The quality of the video. So that's what we call value, by the way. That's what we call value. Remember how I've said value matters more than quality and quantity? Mm-hmm. But all three of them matter. Value is the opt-in, though. 100%. Quality is what I call viewer experience or viewer enjoyment. Okay? So that is measured by retention and by watch time. And here's why quantity matters, Daniel. Like, you can only scale and truly grow and capitalize if you have enough of value and quality for people to want to binge on, and to people always want to go to, and you've made your channel a destination. So now you have to understand, what can I make that allows me to be consistent? That is the quality and enjoyment that my viewers have come to expect and want, and what will they pay attention to start the clock. Yep. So you have to do all of it. You have to be consistent in some way. You can be less consistent when you're famous, by the way. So like, oh, so-and-so only uploads ever so often, and they make it a banger every time. Right. They're rich. They have 20 people working for them, and they've figured this stuff out.
And they're making very high value production videos that a lot of people are waited with bated breath to watch.
Exactly. So, and they've also built their own audience off platform, as a real easy mechanism for driving initial clicks and distribution anyway. So, and they also use it for hype too. So they built a cult following. Yep. If you haven't done that, then quality is not your answer jumping out of the gate. It could help you stand out early, but most people don't have the years of experience or the just raw God-given talent to jump into, oh, I'm going to start with quality from day one. Right. Like you have to respect where you are, you know, like an athlete or a musician, you're not going to be good at it right away. So like take your time there, but you can be consistent and you can build up over time. And the thing is that could help you to understand if you can't anticipate it or you can't jump on a trend or a news topic like I did last night, it would help you to understand, well, what does my audience care about, or what's a demand in the market, and where do I fit in that market, and what can I bring to the table that's different?
Yeah. Consumption is a big thing. You know, the kind of product, how consumable is the content that you're making, and what kind of consumption is your channel getting? Because just because the stuff you're making in the niche you're in may seem consumable because other channels are doing well at it, doesn't mean that you've hit that target in a way that your content itself is going to be consumed by that same target audience. It's a weird thing. I always say this.
Yeah.
You can go into a town and you can say, I've done a lot of research and I've realized per capita, there's fewer pizza joints in this town. So if I open up a pizza joint, I'm going to crush it. Well, that's not a bad strategy for doing research, but you still have to be a really good pizza joint, because if your pizza sucks, it doesn't matter. You have to make quality consumable content that people love and want to come back and enjoy again.
Indeed. I want to address something that Mende Gaming HQ says, because I see this comes from a lot of gamers, and that's because of their niche, and they have a bias about their own niche. Saying that SEO and that nonsense doesn't matter, and that's all about being first wave to cover a topic and then delivering value, a video with a solution for the problem, no matter the field. SEO does matter. Keywords matter. Tags actually influence some things from what I've seen with regard to classification for ads, by the way, because we actually, as advertisers, use keywords and keyword exclusions to determine where our ads do show up. And Matt Geelan has actually covered that in his presentation, and he does work with big media people like Warner Brothers, Warner Music. I believe he's also worked with the WWE and Cartoon Network. And these people not only do massive YouTube channels as corporations, they do massive ad media buys. So I'm going to take his word on that, plus my own experience. You can't say that tags don't matter. I know that that's a rhetoric people like to have. It may not matter for you as gamers. It may not matter as a gaming channel. It may not matter for comedians. And that's fine, but that's your niche. That's not everybody. Yep. That's not everybody, and that's not the platform as a whole. Tags won't matter when YouTube gets rid of them.
Right.
Like it gets rid of everything else.
I did a whole video out in this where I deleted the tags from one of my highest long-standing performing videos, and of course, nothing really changed. And it's a lot to do with the
data is already logged, though.
YouTube starts creating its own internal tags when it starts to get to know the video better, just based on traffic data. It starts understanding what was said in the video, what's been said by comments in there, where the people who are interacting, what other content they're interacting with. If they use YouTube as a search engine and they type something in and my video was served, regardless if it had the tags or it was correct, if they clicked and went, that's a good response. They liked it. They watched it for the search term they were looking for. Those things matter.
Tags matter for suggested videos of your own content being lumped together, because it makes that's why I can have, out of the suggested videos, there's a portion and a percentage of the suggested videos that are about someone's user preferences and behavior, and then there is that maps to the video that you're watching. And that's one of the things in the metadata that is influenced by tags, is the classifiers of commonality between videos, because I have brand exclusive and channel exclusive tags for my own content to classify the relationship between the videos on my other channels and the videos on my main channel and the videos between playlist.
Yeah. I got a couple of questions. I got a couple of questions I don't want to jump over.
That's something people don't know about.
I agree with you 100%. I'm going to try to stay on topic as much as I can, because when you start talking, all I want to do is listen.
So, you're good. You're good.
What if in my country will increase the tax content for the content creator? What will the YouTube follow? So there's a little bit of a reading through some English here. Will the tax for your will increase?
I think he's referring to the royalties and tax situation. They said that these changes will roll out internationally in mid 2021, but they'll apply it based on the tax situation with regard to whatever the relationship between your country and the US is, and the AdSense terms of service in your country of origin with relation to you operating through the US. That gets very complicated. You'll want to talk to a tax professional and somebody maybe who knows international business law about that. I am very rookie level when it comes to that type of thing because I'm not, as of yet, a multinational or global entity, and I don't really want to be. If I can, I'll give that to somebody else to do. Could somebody else do that so I don't have to think about any of it? That's a whole another headache. I don't want to be Mr. Burns with an army of lawyers here.
Sure you do. Come on.
Maybe. I mean, if they're doing all the work, then yes.
There is some Sith Lord world domination, galactic overlord thing that goes on with you that I know that you wouldn't totally.
Oh, the Sith delegate, homie. The Sith delegate, because that's we gotta sit there and we gotta focus on our revenge plots, and we delegate everything else, so we can just be about being petty.
All right, listen, I got to do a big shout out to my friend Shelly, who's in the chat. Shelly, good to see you. I did put a link in Facebook. If you wanted to join, feel free to click in. There's a question here from Rashil again, who's saying, how much do you earn from the ads? Take this, please. Like they want to know. Listen, I've been pretty candid.
Watch my video on it.
Yeah. Roberto actually tells everybody what he made. He's pretty open book when it comes to what his channel drives, and every channel's different. That's one of the things. I'll tell you what I make. I mean, in general, because I have a couple of channels. I have an older channel that still drives some revenue. I used to have with my son. The way that memberships brings in things, and then you've got to take in all of this. I just sort of I don't break it down and go, well, these is just just the ad revenue, because it gets deposited into my account as a lump sum from Google. Both channels, super chats, membership fees, and in all of that, I don't make a ton of money. It's probably between $2,000 and $2,500 a month that I make right now at the size of my channel. It increases and fluctuates as my channel's performing. That's what really fluctuates is if my channel is having a really strong month with views, because I really knuckled down when I was trying to get that silver play button, and I pushed hard. So then my revenue went up really high because I had so much content coming out. It was so easy for specific advertisers to get in front of, especially the competition and the people I was actually making sponsored content for. So it went up. So it's settled in, like I said, in that $2,000, $2,500 a month. It's not a ton. It's $25,000, $30,000 a year. It's not the kind of money for the amount of work I do, and for when you say, oh, silver play buttons and all that.
Oh, it's minimum wage.
It's not a ton of money. For the amount of hours I put in, trust me, it's brutal. I put in way too much work for that amount of money. That being said, I am a six-figure content creator based on all of the other revenue streams that I put together in the process of doing that, because I never wanted to just rely on ad revenue to make the kind of money to support myself, because I knew it wouldn't. I came from a successful, I had a successful construction business for three and a half decades. So I knew how to make money. So this was something it had to break six figures quickly, or my girlfriend would be looking at me going like, what are you doing?
Just come at you with the frying pan.
Right, upside the head. And you've been pretty clear. Again, if you're not subscribed to Roberto's channel, please do so. I do have his video linked down below that goes into this particular subject more deeply and breaks down the different sections. Maybe not more deeply, but he certainly touches on all the things that if you're in here and out of here and might have missed some, he's got it really encapsulated in a way that he really explains what's going on. But Roberto's channel also has talked about, you've been really transparent with the kind of money that you've earned on your channel. Like, do you want to talk about that at all? Do you want to? Sure.
I mean, I can talk about it a little bit. I mean, with regard to ad revenue in a very general way, and I'm very thorough and very detailed. My CPM average is about $22.85 right now.
Which is insane. Like, my CPM is maybe on a good day. Higher. Mine is either 7 or 8, and my RPM. So if people don't know, CPM is basically what an advertiser will average. Yeah,
it's what the valuation.
Right. To get in front of your content or in your content somewhere on average, but not all views are monetized. So if you drive 1,000,
and not all views are monetized equally.
Right. So the RPM is a newer data point they've given us that sort of takes the average of all of the views on your channel and says, listen, you make about this much per X amount of views, per 1,000 views, period. This period, no matter how many, we factor in all the averages and go whether the view was monetized or not monetized or how it was monetized. So I love the new RPM thing. So just so that people understand the difference of the two.
I can show them something if they're really interested.
You want to see? Can I pop this up here?
You can pop it up.
Let me see.
I'm one of the most transparent people on this,
There you
platform.
go. Look at that right there. He's not playing around.
This is a single video, by the way. This is the lifetime of that video. Mm-hmm. This video was published over the summer, back in June. This one video is made 2,000 for the year. Now, if I focused my channel like a Graham Stephan and I only made these videos, and I made these videos, let's say if I made these videos 3 times a week on my channel, then that would mean I'd be making about 150 of these particular videos per year, like say a Graham Stephan, right? Who I love. I love his content. This is not a criticism of him in any way. But if I did that, and that's the only type of content that I did, and this video, by the way, wasn't even as much of a top tier performing video as you might think. Because actually, before I tell them how many views this video has, Dan, let's do something interesting. How many views to make this much money? How many views without cheating do you guys think this video had to get to earn that kind of money? How many views without cheating, without breaking out a calculator? Just your quick guesses in the next 10 seconds.
Throw it in the chat. Just throw a number out there. You think how many views did Roberto's video need to drive to get $2,386.90? Don't do the RPM math. I know you guys out there.
Because here's the thing: if this was the only type of content I did, Daniel, with this kind of performance, like a Graham Stephan or a Nate O'Brien or an Andre Geek or a Meet Kevin. Meet Kevin does 3 videos a day. Screw 3 videos a week. Like, I did the math. My channel would make $300,000 a year, which it does not if this is the only content I did. So that's the issue. Now, a lot of people think 200,000, a million views, 50K, 10K, blah blah blah. But I think they just tried to do the math. The video has done about 77,000 views. And that's, and that's really good for my channel, but that's over the course of the last 3 months. There are creators who do that in a month on a video or in a week on a video in that niche of make money online or passive income and so on and so forth. So if I only did that type of content, I would make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year if I only did this content. Okay. Right. And I'm qualified to do this content because I use real numbers. I use real examples. None of the get rich quick BS nonsense. I give real advice, and I still struggle to get views because I don't clickbait. So the issue though, and I bring this up, is that is not the entire channel as a whole. And let me see, where can I get back to analytics? That's not the entire channel as a whole. As you can see for this month, for example, on 300,000 views, I did about, $3,000. I averaged like 22, like I said, with an RPM of about $10 and so forth. And I have a lot of like math that I figure out on these things, and evergreen content, old inventory can do very well. Cause like I said, that video is not even a new video, and it's still just in this month alone added almost $300 to the channel in the last 28 days. And that video is months old. So that's made it true passive income, which is why I talk about passive income, because I know what I'm talking about. But videos that may outperform, videos who might do 100,000 views, almost less than half the money, almost a third of the money.
But wait a minute. We're talking monetization. We're being transparent. Stay right here. Now, here's a video that would you call this sort of an average video on your channel?
No, this is an outlier. This is over 100,000 views. This is 150,000 views. My videos, if people pay attention, don't do that.
Okay. Well, stay there. Well, wait a minute. Stay right there. Let's look at that. This is 157,000 views. Go back to the revenue side of this thing and let's see what it's doing. So we can look at the CPM and the RPM on that as well. Now, this is one of Roberto's videos, right? Now, some people might think, well, you guys are kind of similar in niche. You talk about YouTube growth. He's really a marketing guy, right? He's talking about being a content influencer. I'm more about content creation. But we cross paths for a reason. Now, here's a guy who's driven 160,000 views on a video that's driven him about just under $1,000 with a CPM. That's how much the advertiser on average kind of pays, somewhere around a little over $12. And in RPM, meaning of all the views he gets, every time you can count a view, it's going to, 1,000 views, because RPM is based on 1,000. 1,000 views will get him about $6.18. Let me show you something else. Here's a video that I did. This video has driven $358. It's got an RPM of under $3, $2.69, and a CPM of $7.50. But if you look at the RPM on this, it's already driven $137,000 views, and I think this has been up for about a month.
So that's comparable to mine, but like the revenue is drastically different.
Totally. So it's a similar video. It hasn't driven quite as many views, but if you look at Roberto's, look at how he's optimized his content and the way that he tries to build things so that he can increase the kind of revenue he drives. One of the things is, this is one of the things, I'm bringing this up for a reason. I think sometimes, Roberto, people think, oh, well, how much do you make on YouTube? I'm like, it totally depends on what kind of content you're making, who it's being put in front of, what regions in the world it's doing well in. A lot of my content, a good almost 40-something%.
Because it's software, and it's also software that is not subscription based, which people like to pirate or crack.
Yep. And if I look at the demographics of where a lot of my views are coming from, I get a lot of India, Indonesia, Pakistan, places where the value in CPM is extremely low because they're not high dollar buying countries. Nothing against, I love my Indian
No, but
audience,
there's also, it's harder to create ads for them because you don't have the market, you don't have the localization. The cost of value on the localization, the ROI isn't there for most of these big companies.
Right. So there you have to,
they also is not a culture of consumerism the way there is in the West.
Right. Yeah. In the United States, and when we say the West, that, that breaks down into quite a few
United
places.
States, Canada, UK, Australia.
Yep. And New Zealand too. I get good money in New Zealand.
Kiwis.
So you have to understand that not all countries have the same consumer base. So where you're making content from, where your content might serve, the kind of niche, that brings us full circle back to this conversation of when we see ads now being served on the smaller unmonetized channel. What are we saying, Roberto? Did the world just crack? Did the YouTube just explode on us? Has there been a major change that all of us should really be knuckling in and going, well, that's it. Now the platform is completely different. And
I think the tax implications of the royalties is actually more interesting and has more consequences for people than this does. The viewer is the one that I'm actually concerned about in this equation, because I think the real loser here, creators are mad. The real loser is the audience.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think
the real loser is the audience.
I think, I part of my sympathy says, I think that I've said this before you showed up, Roberto. I don't think you caught it. I almost kind of felt like it would have been nice if YouTube had said, hey, listen, what we're going to do is we track revenue, whether you're monetized or not. Even if you're not monetized, you'll just see zero in your revenue. It would have been nice if they had said, hey, we'll track the revenue. And if you do get monetized, which is a small percentage of the channels on the platform, at that point, we will give you the percentage of what we've accumulated, no different than if you are in the YPP program, but you haven't broken the $100 threshold, and they're just holding it. And they go, when you finally break 100, we'll give you a percentage, even if it was a reduced percentage. So you go, we're going to make this fair. We give YPP members 55% of what we make in ad revenue. We're going to give unmonetized channels, we're going to give you 25% that will hold to a certain time. You have X amount of years to clear it out. If you get monetized within that year, we'll give you everything from that year. If you don't, we're going to roll that right back into our own funds, and we'll start again at whatever the beginning of the year is, January 1st. I thought that there was I kind of feel sometimes that there are things that YouTube could do when they roll out these really cool new ideas that do well for them, and they're trying to change the platform, that could throw a bone to some smaller creators and have them go, hey, that's better than nothing. I'll take that.
Let me ask you this. In any business, and this is going to sound cruel. This is going to sound cruel.
Here it comes.
In any business, in the hierarchy of decision making, like, are you thinking about your customers? Are you thinking about your top performers and top earners? Are you thinking about the people in the company play for the highest stakes? You thinking about the shareholders? Are you going to make a foundational change to the company based on the experience of the maintenance crew?
Well, here's the thing. You're right.
We're going to take care of the maintenance crew, but are we going to make a fundamental change?
Well, here's the thing.
That prioritizes the maintenance crew above every other stakeholder.
I hear what you're saying, but let me answer your question. There were no ads running for smaller channels, right? So it wasn't even there. It was not a thing as of before this announcement. So it didn't exist. So when it's a new thing, you could have
happening for weeks, if not months.
Well, and yes, there are ads that play on smaller channels before this, if that content may have been claimed by someone who had the rights to anything that was used in it and things. So it wasn't like ads were never seen on smaller channels. But when they rolled this out as a new thing, do you think that it was at least a worthy discussion point to say, well, it didn't exist really before this new rollout. It didn't exist last year. Couldn't you, because it's a new thing, we're not fundamentally changing. You fundamentally changed the platform by adding ads to smaller channels now that we're not monetized. Couldn't you have fundamentally changed it so that YouTube would take 75%, would hold 25% for anyone who reached monetization in the tax year or however you want to figure it out, and give them a shot at it at least? I mean,
if you said, hey, we're going to, for anybody in the company who makes 30 sales in a month, we're going to give you a pay bump. Yeah. And people don't make the 30 sales in the month. Why would you still give the pay bump when you said, if you want a pay raise, all you have to do is meet the sales quota?
Yep.
Why would you make a decision?
I agree. So
because again, this is what I'm saying is, if you care, if anybody cares about this, 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time in 12 months.
4,000.
Yeah, I said that. 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time in 12 months.
Yeah,
and I'm not being funny when I say that. I'm not being funny when I say that. There have been channels like our friend Daniel from Creator Fundamentals. You have Nick has. I haven't made a video. I probably make the video today on getting your first 1,000 subscribers and your first 4,000 hours of watch time. And the reason I say this is because jobs have job requirements. Careers have barriers to entry to earn, unless it's an entry-level, non-skilled or unskilled labor profession. Okay. There are qualifiers to most things in life that represent the highest levels of opportunity.
Yep.
And that's how it's always been.
Yep.
If you want to be a firefighter, you have to pass the fitness regimen. If you want to join the military, you have to pass the ASVAB. You know, my dad was a Marine.
Are you allowed to say that? Are you allowed to say that on YouTube? ASVAB? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just have to
you have to pass, like, it's a test. You have to pass an aptitude test. You have to pass the ASVAB, and then you have to pass the fitness requirements, and you can't wash out of boot camp. Right. Like, there's requirements for you to be a civil servant, a citizen soldier. There's requirements for you to be a law enforcement professional. There's requirements for you to run for public office. There's requirements for being a graphic designer. There's requirements for working at a company that pays high salaries.
Yep.
Why would YouTube not have requirements for you to directly monetize on your channel? And again, if your goal is you want to be a full-time content creator, you would need to get subscribers anyway. You'd need to be capable of getting watch time anyway. What limitation and barrier did they set for you that didn't exist in the market as it is? If you want brand deals, are you really thinking you're going to get brand deals if you are not capable of producing 4,000 hours of watch time and 1,000 subscribers? Do you really think a brand is going to rock with you, is going to want to send you products, is going to want to put money in your pockets when you can't even meet the first threshold or requirement, or you get angry or you get upset or you get discouraged at the first sign of a qualifier?
Yeah.
Why are people going to work with you then?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you to Mr. Knee Explorer for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. I think that there has been an argument that was made by, this is funny, talk about serendipity. I heard this on the what was John Prosser's podcast called? Now I forget because he hasn't done it in a
Recycle
while.
bin.
The creator.
Oh, creator mindset.
Creator
Oh,
mindset.
Oh, I think I know where you're going.
You were talking to him, and John had a take. He said, "I don't think."
It was
think
high
they should
enough.
raise it. I think they should raise the YPP. I think it should be, you should have to have, 10,000 subscribers and, 40,000.
My middle ground was 5.
And I thought it was funny. I listened to that.
5 and 5.
And I was like, and I was already monetized at that time, but I was going, oh, I can imagine the cringing on the other side because I personally feel for me that it was a goal to make sure that I was monetized when I was small. Like, get this monetized, please. It's a mark that I can hit. And I think for a lot of creators, I always tell them, listen, be realistic. You're not going to make a lot of money right when you hit the monetization, but there's a thing where you hit it and you go, all right, I know I'm not going to make a lot of money off the bat, but at least I know now I can make money. I can make money. So that small thing that you go, if I get there and I can just, even if it's just, small droplets of pennies falling from the YouTube payment system, I'll take it. And
you'd make more money for less time and effort just doing Fiverr freelancing or literally doing gig apps like Uber and DoorDash than the effort required to make your first. With the effort required to make your first $100 from YouTube, you would have made $1,000 doing gig work with these apps or off of Fiverr. I kid you not.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And one thing I always love about your channel, Roberto, is you're really honest about, listen, take your eyes off of the AdSense and start thinking about how you can make money as an influencer, as a creator, as an entrepreneur. And that's what I always love about your take, is it's always been that sort of creative entrepreneur, a guy who gets out there. Don't just say, that's not the AdSense is not the golden egg. That's not the goose that lays the golden egg. It's the ability to harness being a creator and all the ways that you can drive revenue as an influencer, as an entrepreneur, treating it as a creator, as a business. I love that about you. And I agree, but you have to admit, come on, people in the chat, I need you to get behind me on this one, or give me your opinion. I might be wrong. In the chat, does that monetization threshold, even if you don't make much money, give me a yes, it means something. Yes,
it means it's motivation.
Or no. Just tell me yes or no in the chat.
I know what they're going to say, and it's motivation, and the lack of it is discouragement. And you know what? Long term, that might be. It might, in some ways, we miss out on some people because of that. Yeah. Long term, we'll get better quality content as viewers because of it, and we'll have a stronger platform because of it. Because I'm telling you, these rules and these requirements would never have these things. Will not discourage and not stop the next Mr. Beast. It will not stop the next Marquez. It will not stop the next PewDiePie. It will not stop the next iJustine or the next Sarah Dici or Crystal Laura. It will not stop the next Lamar Wilson. It will not stop the next Andre Black Nerd Comedy. It will not stop the next Emergency Awesome. It will not stop, unfortunately, the next Jake and Logan Paul. It will not stop people who are relentless and who have a wild amount of commitment and discipline to go after their dreams and want, and people who are going to be unreasonable and outwork you. It is not going to stock for my anime nerds and everything like that. Oh, that's cute that Sasuke and Naruto got discouraged and everything like that. They ain't about that Rock Lee life. They ain't about that Rock Lee life. I have no talent, so I will just work absurdly hard and I will do 1,000 push-ups an hour. Like that Rock Lee life, y'all. Yeah. Those of you who aren't anime nerds, again, it's just the fact that there is somewhere out there an unreasonable man, an unreasonable woman who looks at the things that you see as limitations, and the goals that they have for themselves are so much absurd that limitation is a joke compared to the weight and the standard that they've set for themselves. Yeah. If your standard is so far below the threshold of these requirements or limitations, you weren't going to be able to do it, or at least not with the mindset you currently have. You would have to get on a whole nother mindset level and get your head in the game, because it'd be like looking at the presidential fitness requirements back in school when you had gym class and getting discouraged by that when there's a kid in your class who is thinking about being on the varsity for the team. Yeah. And y'all aren't cut from the same caliber.
Oh, I would always die on the pull-ups, because I was such a skinny little geek when I was in high school. I could, whatever the requirement was, it was dumb. It was like 5 or 10, and I could do like 9. I'd be like, can't get the last one. But
Right.
everyone in the chat room made excellent points. Most of them I got yes. The feel button said it's a good early target or goal, and I do tend to agree with that. That you have to that as much as I think it's not important in the grand scheme of things, I think once you get past it, if they had, I think once you get into the point where you're actually making money and you look back in retrospect, because hindsight is 2020, then you said, if they had moved that goal, would it have changed my path? Probably not. If they had said it was 5,000 subscribers and it was 10,000 watch hours or 15,000 watch hours, would that have changed my path looking back? No, but I do remember starting early, because even though I'm much older than you, Roberto, and you've been reminding me of that along the course of this discussion, I am younger on the platform as a creator, actually treating it like I am a creator on the platform. So for me, it was very early on, like, that's the target. Like, I want to hit that target. If that's where you're going to set it, let me see if I can hit it. And
then I would say, do this. Set your target to your next 100 videos.
Mm-hmm.
So make 100 videos. You have to increase the quality of those videos to the point where the viewer experience, the viewer enjoyment meets an average view duration of 4 minutes each, which will produce, if you get 1,000 views per average on that, then you will produce, if I'm not mistaken, around 400,000 minutes of watch time, which will produce about 6,000 hours. So you'll meet those requirements. And if you averaged across 100 videos, averaged 1,000 views, so your first 100,000 views, based on the 1% rule, you'll probably meet the 1,000 subscriber threshold anyway. So if you make quality content of viewer enjoyment, a target average view duration, something that's measurable and not as fickle, and is objective viewer enjoyment in the numbers, 4 minutes. That's your target. 100 videos, that's controllable. 100 videos is controllable because that's your target output. 4 minutes average view duration, fine. You're going to have to make quality content. That's you stepping up here. That's not subjective. That's not emotional. That's like, all right, I can keep people for 4 minutes. That's quality content as dictated by the viewer, not my own personal opinion of my content. And then that forces you into consistency. And so through that, I can control my output, I can step up and deliver value for my viewers and a good experience for my viewers. And that, by sheer math, if I go ahead and also make sure that I target things that are interesting enough to a specific audience, not my random, what did I do today? A specific audience. So I'm intentionally making and crafting 100 videos for the enjoyment of a group of people. And I'm making sure they enjoy it enough to watch 4 minutes of it, and that they enjoy it so much they might share it, so that I can average 1,000 views. I might not get the 1,000 views on the first 10, 12 tries, but I might get 2,000 views on the outliers. You just have to get the averages. That's the math. The math. That's an achievable, measurable, attainable goal, and that's in your control, and that's discipline. It is no different than saying, hey, you want that medal? It's 20 push-ups in 1 minute. Go. It's 15 pull-ups on the bar without falling off. Go. I set a standard. I set an outcome and an execution for you. It's up to you to deliver on it. And that's as straightforward as it gets, Daniel. That's the formula. That's the math. And 100 videos over the course of 12 months. All right. Oh, well, I don't have that much time, or I can't make that. Like, that's a you thing. You have to figure it out. Or you have to make videos that are such a high quality and offer so much value to a new audience that people will say, oh, I can't beat the algorithm. Make something so good that people share it. Make something so good that people will share it.
Say it again. Make something so good
that people will share it.
Love it. That's really
word of mouth still matters.
That's one of the things. Like I'm, my pal Pia here, Pixel Pia. She makes one comment there that it makes a lot of sense. I wish the community tab would be released earlier. It's a great way to build the community. I agree. Some of those features, there's not just monetization. There's a lot of little targets along the way that get opened up. We've talked about this. I won't go down this fork in the road about whether subscribers matter or not. We've had
it matters for unlocks.
unlocking stuff.
I say it doesn't matter for algorithm. It doesn't affect the algorithm. That's what I keep saying when I say it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter for your traffic sources. It doesn't.
Yep.
It
doesn't matter. But I do agree that, like Pia says, there's so many other great little things that do come along the way that can be targets as well, not just monetization. Like a thing that, let me just say here for a second, that monetization threshold does unlock things like your ability to, to not just make money, but it does open other features. Like, they have now channel memberships, which has been showing up. I didn't see it till I was after 50,000 subscribers, but now people are getting it with a couple of thousand subscribers.
If they live stream a lot. Yeah.
If they live stream, right. If they have the ability to get in there, or if they, happen to know people who are on the alternative monetization department and put a phone call in for them. I wouldn't know anyone like that, but, but you can, it's one of those things that features that get unlocked is cool. And I love, that other end of it is like when you do start seeing, we're talking about monetization, but when you do get monetized, there's so many cool things that do open up to creators that on the platform itself that you can now make money in new ways with super chats and with channel memberships and things like that. That you're going to find there's a lot of targets along the way. To this day, like for me, hitting that 100,000 subscriber mark and getting a silver play button was a big one for me. So never mind getting monetized. I mean, after I got monetized, I went, I'd like to hit 10,000 subs. And then nothing happened between 10 and 100. I went, there's no middle ground. You don't get excited that you hit 47,000 subs.
I would say you get excited at 50,000 because like it proves to you that, it would be possible. I mean, it did for me anyway. That's like, I now understand how to doubling something is easier than 10xing something.
100%. You'll see anyone out there, if you're someone who's just trying to get to that monetization threshold, if you're a smaller channel, I've said this all along, the first 100 subs, if you don't bring anything to the platform with you, if you're not huge on Instagram, you aren't known otherwise, you're just I'm a fresh face and nobody knows me. I'm getting out there. I'm just trying to put my foot in the door and make my mark. And as Brian would say, stake your claim on YouTube. That first 0 to 100 subscribers can be a real struggle because you don't have content yet. You're learning everything from scratch. And then getting from that 100 to 1,000 is the next real struggle. Like, wow, that is a journey. But what I found is once you get past 1,000 to 10, because I went from, it took me 5 months to get to 1,000 subscribers. It took me, by the end of the year, I was at 17,000 subscribers. And then the year later, not even 10 or 11 months later, I had got my silver play button. So that ability to sort of get things rolling and get in there and say, listen, as hard as it felt to get that first 100 or that first 1,000, it's not equally hard as you move forward. Because if you do it right and do the things that Roberto said, make that kind of consumable content that people want to watch, they want to share, they want to go back on and watch more than one piece of your content, and you structure your channel in a way where it funnels the viewers towards more of your content when they're enjoying one piece, and you make it easy for them to engage and consume more of your content, then that growth on YouTube becomes exponential and cumulative, so that when you really start getting the ball moving, you'll see it's like a snowball going downhill, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger as it picks up steam, because you've actually got some momentum that you've created, and YouTube starts learning more about your particular content and your channel. You start learning more about your viewers learn more about you, YouTube learns more about the kind of viewers that enjoy your content, and the whole thing starts moving a lot more smoothly. So that's the real goal that I feel people should focus on. This little thing about ads happening. Yeah, I understand it, man. When you're just got in you just put your foot in the door and all of a sudden, now they're slapping ads on my content. It can be a lot. But I'm telling you that the real journey is to set some bigger goals like Roberto's talking about. Those really higher tier goals of, I'm not here just to drop my fishing rod in the pond and pull the bait back out. I'm here to land something. I'm here to land a fish, and multiple big fish if I can, and reel them in.
Yeah, I don't worry about the things I can't control, Daniel. I can't control I have no say in what the platform does or doesn't do. I have to play the cards the gods have dealt me. And I just know how to play a really good hand. But I'm actually a fan of card games. Actually, in fact, I'm a big old Yu-Gi-Oh nerd, and I'm the worst kind of nerd because I am a Blue Eyes player. Which means it's like I'm a total prick. It's like screw the rules. I have money. Like that's a joke from the anime, or the abridged version of the anime anyway. But the point is that in video games, MMORPGs, card games, There are things called fixed conditions. Are you familiar with the term?
So explain.
Fixed conditions are things that are inevitable, things that you know, regardless of what you do, this will happen at some point. So in a game like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon, you know that at some point, like every turn, your opponent and you both draw a card during your turn. So since you know that that's going to happen no matter what you do, it's your responsibility to find a way to either profit from that or at a bare minimum, not have that hurt you in some way. You know at some point that there are cards that are going to end up on the field or in the discard pile or graveyard or whatever we call it. We know that there are fixed conditions of no matter what I do on a long enough timeline, these 6 things are constant and eternal if there's not some dramatic intervention.
Yep.
If that's the case, I should make my entire strategy predicated on these inevitable things working as much to my benefit and as least to my detriment as possible. And so I should understand the rules of the world that I live in and act accordingly. I don't even have to play against anybody else. I just have to play against the damn rule book.
Yeah.
I just have to play the rule book.
You know what I've always said is my biggest competition in all of this has always been me. It's always been me. I always look at what my channel's doing today, what my channel did yesterday, and I start really thinking about what I want my channel to do tomorrow. And when I say my channel, I really mean the entire brand that's built around the channel, what the goals are for that channel, what I want it to do, what I want to do as a creator. They're such bigger goals than just money numbers. I mean, that's part of it. I always set goals for that, but I nose into my analytics so hard to look at how can I take this and grow it faster? How can I grow it more effectively? Sometimes it's not just about the numbers. How can I do higher dollar numbers without having to crush so many views? I'm fighting so hard. You saw my data.
Oh yeah.
Look at how many views I have to drive to compete with a guy like you who's making 2 to 3 times the money on the same amount of views. I can tell you how to opt. Well, I mean, some of that is just topics because again, and some of it's also again, there's a strategy that I'll talk to you offline about it. And I've talked about it in my videos. I have followed your videos and I know a lot of them, but
I can make it specific to you. I already know like what to do.
Oh, you're the best. I love you, Roberto. So listen, let me do this. If we were going to wrap this thing up here to the 121 people that are still watching and give them one piece of advice when they're looking at all these new rollouts in the terms of service and they're small creators and they're going, well, this sucks. I feel overwhelmed and now there's going to be ads and what do I do? And what is this? I was just trying to get going. If you looked at those people who might have been rattled by this, because some people just aren't rattled and they go, I don't care. But there are some people who have been rattled that could potentially be really great creators of tomorrow. The people that we go, oh man, if he hadn't given up or she hadn't given up, that was the person that would have been the perfect creator for the platform, but they got rattled early. What piece of advice would you give them looking at this new terms of service rollout to try to get them through this? How do we carry them through? How do we give them a big hug and go, it'll be okay?
Have zero emotional investment in this platform and make all of your emotional investment in your audience, the people who do see your content. You don't control whether or not your content gets seen. You do control how you respond and how you react and how you care for the people who actually see your content. You get to control the content you make and how much of it you make. You don't get to control how much money it makes most of the time. You can optimize it to make money. Control the things you can control, let go of everything else. God grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. Discernment. You know damn well you can't control the terms of service, the rules on the platform. It's your responsibility to know what they are and to think about how they might affect you and then limit how they affect you. And the way you initially limit it is you limit your emotional investment in it. And you put your emotional investment and you put your energy into your audience, your craft, and into how you care for yourself and you care for your people. So you get focused on your personal development aspect of it. You're being leveraged as a content creator and discouraged because you've got some work to do on your self-love and your self-maintenance and your headspace and your personal development. Then you need to get into your personal finance and you need to start thinking about this from a practical standpoint. And if you measure it, you're fighting to make minimum wage. You're fighting for all those damn views. And if you made the money I make, it's a penny a damn view. I make a penny a damn view. Okay. It sounds great. But it's like, okay, like think about it. Think about it. Like it's a penny a view. It is a penny I'm a top earner in terms of the ratios. I want you to, I'm serious, Daniel. Like, think about it. 300,000 views to make $3,000. It's, the insanity of it is that it is literally, for those views, it's a penny a view.
Penny a view.
Which
is a
penny.
ton. Which I got to tell you is a ton. I wish I made a penny a view because I do not make a penny a view. So you know what? I think you nailed it, Roberto. I literally don't have another thing to add on top of that because that was exactly it, man. If you can just really focus on take YouTube off the table. Remember, there's an audience out there you're trying to reach, and remember that there's a connection you're trying to create. And if you've put all of your focus in doing that effectively, all of these other things will pass, and all of these other things will seem insignificant once you create that connection point, because all of these things will come easier. They'll just fall into your lap. They'll start making so much more sense. And you're not wrestling with the rule book, holding it up and freaking out over the rules. You're really paying attention to people. There's people on the other side watching your videos. When you're filming, there's one person out there at a time that's probably watching on their phone like this. They're not all in a room. It's not YouTube. It's just someone going, who is it? James Pruitt's got a new video out today. Let me check it out. That's the person you should be worried about.
Exactly.
And get them one at a time so that you slowly start accumulating viewers that get invested in you through the content you make by sharing those commonalities that you have with them and giving them value every time you put something up. That's all of it. That's all of it. So listen, Roberto, I want to thank you so much for being here. There is Roberto's video down in the description of this video that talks about this exact subject of the new changes in the terms of service, explains it really well in a short period of time, I should say. So you may want to check that out if you need an overview of what's happened to the platform and how it may affect you as a creator. If you are not subscribed to Roberto's channel, please do. Roberto Blake on the YouTube channel. You have a few channels. There's another channel. What other channels should they be looking out for, Roberto?
Go check out the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. It's youtube.com/CSAT podcast. I have a great interview over there with Sarah Dici, who's over 700,000 subscribers, and she talks about being a full-time creator, brand deals, creativity, the truth about the Casey Neistat shout out in her early career, and also how she hustled as a freelancer to be able to get her opportunities and to do YouTube when she had 4,000 subscribers. So we talk about all of that for an hour. It's one of my favorite interviews from one of my favorite creators and a good friend. We've been friends for 4 years. And so that channel is almost to 1,000 subscribers. It's 1/4 of the way to monetization. I would love for all of you to not only watch that interview, but to give me your feedback on it. I would like to improve as an interviewer and as a podcaster. I'd also like any questions that you got from watching the content and wanting to know more about how you do something like what I do or like what Sarah does. We talk a lot about the realities of YouTube and what it's like to live the lifestyle of being a full-time content creator. And she's one of the best, and she's someone who's done it right, and she's someone who earned her place. I also really enjoy her perspective as one of the only female content creators in tech and someone who's opened doors for new creators to embrace that niche. So please give that podcast episode some love, and I'd appreciate it.
And I'll make sure that I link that down in the description of this live stream. So it'll be down below for anyone who's interested and didn't catch it. And I'll link it in the pinned comments afterwards as well. So you can see both his video and find the other channel that he's talking about.
Oh, and someone has a last question that they keep posting. They keep spamming this question.
Do it. Hit it.
Is this good for content creators or YouTube? I mean, who will have the most profit margin, YouTube or the creators? It's obvious that on the surface, it's YouTube. What benefits YouTube ultimately benefits creators. Because what are you going to do? Like, you don't have a real, true competitor or alternative to YouTube.
No.
The platform is barely profitable, but most of you don't understand the business. You get to upload content for free. You don't have a platform where you can upload this quality of content for free, this good of a viewer and user experience, and this many opportunities and this many ways to monetize.
Yeah.
So I don't care if YouTube, everyone wants to play this victim game of YouTube exploiting creators. You're getting a free platform that I would have killed to have when I was 13 years old and learning how to edit videos 23 years ago, because I'm 36, 23 years ago, I would have killed for the opportunities that you have today.
Yeah.
So if you're complaining about them, I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate concerns, but it's like, Christ, quit the belly aching and hustle.
Yeah, there's if you're willing to hustle, the world is your oyster right now, especially with vehicles such as YouTube. And I'm going to tell you this. Listen, one thing I'm going to leave my final thought here, that I'm going to say this. Listen, I try to think about YouTube as we're all in this together. I want to see every one of you guys succeed. The reason that's important to me, and it's the reason I've always stressed it, it's no different than skateboarders who wanted to see, or snowboarders that wanted to see their sport end up in the Olympics or be, in big X Games and be seen and be more accepted and understood by a larger group of people that could consume it. And when they worked together and when they tried to push that thing forward and by doing really well, by just making it something that's really competitive and really enjoyable, and they took it serious, that's when we started seeing Shaun Whites and guys like that in the Olympics, because they forced the sporting world to take those sports seriously. We want you guys to do well because we want people to take YouTube seriously. It wasn't that long ago that even to this day, I say to people, what do you do? And people don't want to hear you're a YouTuber, which, I try to avoid that term because it feels like, what is that kind of joke? So really, I want to see every one of you do well. I want to see every one of you succeed. And that was really why I'm invested into the kind of content I make, because if you do well, we all do well. So stay invested in your content. Do yourself a favor and make the best content possible, because when you do that, it helps me, it helps Roberto, it helps all of us. And we promise that we'll do the same. We'll try to be as authentic and true to making value-based content so that we can help you in keeping the platform growing and emerging and always doing bigger things tomorrow than it's been doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. Put the audience first, guys. Stop worrying about all of this. Find a way to put the audience first.
Awesome. Roberto, thank you again for taking the time to stop by here today and help us
always a pleasure.
Get through the weeds here. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for the super chats, for hanging out for all of this. Make sure you check the links in the description for Roberto's video and his channel that he wants you to check out, the podcast. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day. Peace.